Chapter 236. Blessing. The ring of blessing echoed above the city again. People looked at the old bell tower one after another, offering their prayers to their god. However, they felt slightly confused. This time, for whom does the bell ring? In the deep-sea water god temple, the Lamia queen gazed at the scene in the sea demon's mirror without blinking. Puff, puff. Whoa, whoa, whoa. In the crystal mermaid palace, the mermaid queen held the shell in her hands and listened to sweet sounds inside it with a look of ecstasy. Puff, puff. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They knew the meaning of the bell clearly. They could hear its ringing. In front of the old bell, the Celian queen looked at Yun, she with her seductive watery eyes. Her face turned bright red and her lips were half open. Because Yun Shi's silver mask was condensing and spreading water mist, her beautiful hair was wet. The long hair swayed at her waist as her head lightly shook, which looked pretty attractive. Before too very long, her socks had been taken off and her slender legs exposed in the air. Under her white priest robe, they were a pair of little dainty feet. The back of her feet were as white as snow, which looked so delicate that they would be easily hurt with the smallest amount of force. Her toes were pale and slightly pink with a light fragrance of orchid. As she was kissed by Yun Shi, her toes curled, her legs stretched, and her waist stooped. The sensual scene and her seductive groans had all been seen and heard by the Lamia queen and the mermaid queen. It was a special effect of the three high priestesses' relics. At first, it was designed for connecting to each other when something important happened. However, a strange resonance happened and the three relics had stayed in communication for a few days. Due to this, the three high priestesses had all known Yun Shi's intention when he first saw the Lamia queen. Compared to the enthusiastic Lamia queen and the curious mermaid queen, as a human, the Celian queen had a special intellectual beauty. Even though she was in Yun Shi's arms now, she still muffled her voice as if she didn't want to let Yun Shi hear her cute groans. However, it wasn't a natural instinct that could be controlled consciously. After a deep kiss, the queen had almost become drunk. Yun Shi lowered his head and kissed her lips, enjoying her sweet and smooth mouth. The queen half opened her mouth. Seizing the opportunity, Yun Shi's tongue pushed between her white teeth and went deep into her mouth, tangling with her warm, moist tongue. As being guided by Yun Shi, the queen gradually learned how to respond to his actions. Her small tongue tentatively touched Yun Shi's tongue and learned the right way of deep kissing. Her face turned bright red and her eyes became watery. Finally, the beautiful queen couldn't suppress her voice and groaned, as if a canary was singing. Yun Shi's mind had almost been absorbed into the queen's warm, soft body. He stretched out his hands and gently touched her body, losing himself in the wonderful feel. Gradually, a special mark emerged out of the fourth horn on Yun Shi's white emperor mask. The fourth hero-ranked Miss Soul was forming. Is this love? The queen's body trembled. The strange, exciting touch was much too strong for her, so she felt uneasy and confused. Her face blushed and her teeth chattered. Just for a while, she herself had almost become strange even to herself. Yun Shi moved down from the queen's mouth. He kissed her round chin, crystal neck, snow-white chest, and finally went to her snow-white peaks. Through the snow-white priest robe, he opened his teeth and gently bit on her delicious fruits. The queen could no longer keep quiet and emitted a strong groan due to shyness. The queen's body quivered in Yun Shi's arms. Her white jade-like skin had been covered with a layer of pink because of embarrassment. Her saintly expression disappeared, and her current shy expression could make any man lose his head. In the ringing of the bell, the queen took off her last clothes. The bell was ringing for her. It was a blessing for the most beautiful queen of all mankind. It was to celebrate her rebirth from her frozen time. Chapter 237. The Three Queens' Charm. When the bell of blessing rang, Yun Kei was sitting in the Water God Temple's library and dealing with the research related to Yun Shi. For the first time, she knew how painful the meaning of asking for trouble was. By hook or by crook, she still needed to pay for her actions. In order to defeat Shea Longness, the Sky Sword, she concocted the expansion plan of a million brides. At the same time, she had to help Yun Shi select his brides. In the past few days, Yunshi had captured the 3 high priestesses' hearts one by one. As for her, she was busy at selecting brides for Yunshi, which also meant selecting subordinates for herself. In order to win the 3 high priestesses' hearts, Yunshi had put a great deal of time and effort into it, and she wasn't inferior in any respect. She hadn't slept in a few days. When the bell rang, she knew the reason much clearer than anyone. In addition to this, her sensitive ears could even vaguely hear the soft groans amongst the holy bells. That bastard. Has he really succeeded? Yun-Kei raised her head and looked at the tall tower in surprise. Her sense of hearing was far higher than ordinary people. Naturally, she knew who it was. It was the Celian Queen, the most honorable human in this city. As a woman who was thought as unfathomable in Yun-Kei's heart, she had also fallen into Yun-Hai's arms. The Lamia Queen had the strongest strength, the Mermaid Queen had the most perfect appearance, and the Celian Queen had the highest intelligence. Even in Yun-Kei's eyes, they were a perfect golden triangle. The Celian Queen was the youngest one amongst the 3 queens, but she was also the most stable and the smartest one. If Yun-Kei didn't hear her sounds with her own ears, she wouldn't believe that such a queen would fall into that scumbag, Yun-Hai's hands so easily. Did I underestimate him? His talent for capturing girls' heart is too formidable. Yun-Kei sighed in her heart as she remembered what that bastard had done to herself. This world is too unfair. While the bells echoed in the city, the girls from all over the world all knelt down beside the fountains and prayed to the water god. Is there no end of it? Yun-Kei's eyes were red and bloodshot from working non-stop on her plan. As the bell still rang with no sign of stopping, finally, she cursed in agony. I know you are so awesome, that you can even capture the 3 queens' hearts, but can you stop flaunting it in this manner? Many girls who are listening to the bells are still underage. If they knew the truth about the bells, it would leave a shadow on their lives. Yun-Kei had decided to hide this secret in the bottom of her heart forever. However, she still blamed it on Yunshi. This bastard. I won't see him again once I leave this world. Incidentally, Yun-Kei had written all Yun-Hai's crimes in a black notebook, over 7 pages. Are you satisfied? After putting on her white priest robe, the Celian Queen smiled, looking at Yun-Shi's red face with interest. Sorry, I was too impulsive. Yun-Shi apologized. No, that's what I'm here for. I must learn what the Lamia Queen and the Mermaid Queen had done, the Queen said seriously with a straight face. Yun-Shi looked at the Queen with embarrassment. He just taught the Queen a lot of knowledge which she would never find in any books. The Queen's face also turned red. Compared to Yun-Shi, her behavior just now was too immature, like a green olive. That won't do. Her self-esteem as the strongest human high priestess let her make up her mind to do what was necessary. I must learn more knowledge about how to get along well with my lover. Before this day, all her knowledge about love was from a prohibited book, which she secretly took away from the library, The Shameless Demon and His 1,000 Daughters. Reality had proved that the book was indeed useful. However, she was too immature to respond to Yun-Shi enthusiastically like the girls in the book. Was my body good? I'm not bragging, but I'm called the most beautiful woman in the City of Water, the Queen asked proudly. The flames in her eyes dazzled Yun-Shi's eyes. It is the strongest human queen's aura. Yes, you are perfect, said Yun-Shi. Even if she just wanted to take revenge on the Mist Tide at the beginning, however, with such a simple obsession, she finally arrived at the end and became the queen. Her charm had captured Yun-Shi's heart. She was mature and innocent, prideful and cute. The queen was different from all girls Yun-Shi had seen before. The enthusiastic Lamia Queen. The jealous Mermaid Queen, who likes to steal other people's lover. The saintly and innocent Celian Queen. For them, I will do my best to save this world. For the first time, Yun-Shi really started to learn how to feel about relationships in this world. Chapter 238. A good news and a bad news. Okay, I'm done. Finally, Yun-Kei finished her primary selection for the candidates of the expansion plan of A Million Brides. From the records in the library, Yun-Kei found something special in this world. The first several villages she had visited before were protected by the Mountain Lord, so they rarely encountered the mist tide. Due to this reason, they could live a peaceful life, and she didn't see anything abnormal in these villages. In fact, the male-to-female ratio was very abnormal in this world. The birth rates of male babies and female babies were the same. However, most males couldn't grow up peacefully. In some areas, 80% of the males would die before they reached adulthood. It looked as if this world hated males. Yun-Kei sighed in her heart. Compared to males, females were far more lucky in this world. At the very least, they encountered the mist tide less frequently than the males. Perhaps it was because the water god's power was much easier to be inherited by a female's body. Therefore, females had it much easier surviving various dangers. So it explains why males in this world can marry a lot of brides. If they didn't do it, humans would have already gone extinct many centuries ago. However, if this situation carries on, humans will still die out sooner or later. Yun-Kei deduced this world's future and had a very bad calculative result. Those beings with the water god's power could survive the mist tide. Since only females could inherit the water god's power from generation to generation and males couldn't, the situation was very disadvantageous for males. The first Elizabeth was a good example. She never married during her life, but her blood was said to be the blood that is closest to the god, and it was inherited by the females of her family. Finally, the Elizabeth bloodline was born. After that, most Celian queens had the Elizabethan bloodline in their bodies, and the few exceptions also had strong water god power in their bodies. No wonder that the three high priestesses would agree to such a ridiculous plan. Yun-Kei finally understood how supreme the water god's power was in this world. The water god conferred Yun-Hai the White Emperor mask, therefore, he carried the strongest water god's power on his body. In order to obtain the god's power from him, probably the females in this world could forgive whatever he had wanted to do and done. Throughout the world out there, even the most prurient emperor didn't dare to marry 1,000,000 girls. However, the people in this world were happy to see it happening. What a ridiculous world! Yun-Kei struck the table. I don't like this world. I don't like this result. This is not justice. Yun-Kei ground her teeth and clenched her fists. I will make this bastard pay for his crimes sooner or later. Yun-Kei, you are here. Yun-Shi looked at Yun-Kei in confusion. He thought that Yun-Kei looked different today. This was the first time. Yun-Kei looked so angry. Sorry, I just lost my temper. Oh, congratulations. You have finished capturing the three high priestesses' hearts. You are really a competent scumbag. Yun-Kei looked at Yun-Shi coldly and sneeringly. Yun-Shi smiled bitterly. Didn't you tell me to do this? Why are you so angry now? In fact, the whole thing was still going well before I proposed to the three high priestesses. Any news about Shea Longness, the Sky Sword? Yun-Shi tried to move his attention to their most dangerous enemy, the Sky Sword. Even though he had 4 hero-ranked fiancées, he still didn't know whether he could survive any of the Sky Sword's attacks. Sky Swords was the strongest people in the Sky Sword God's domain. Any of them could destroy a whole world easily. If Yun-Shi didn't get help from the Water God, he didn't think that he would have made it till now. I have a good news and a bad news. Which news do you want to listen to first? With her hands on her chin, Yun-Kei looked at Yun-Shi with a cold smile. Bad news first. Yun-Shi only hoped that the bad news wasn't too desperate. Okay, some people had witnessed the first Golden Slime King, which means that the Sky Sword's coming has entered the 3rd phase. Yun-Kei sighed. As expected, it wasn't likely to slow down the Sky Sword's coming by sweeping up the common green slimes. Slimes weren't only living on the ground. In the rivers, seas, and caves, as long as there were water and nourishment, the low-grade monsters could always survive and produce offspring. The only way to stop the slime race from proliferating was to find all their nests and exterminate them with a powerful army. But that was impossible. Then, what's the good news? Yun-Shi sighed with emotion. As expected, the Sky Sword's power was far beyond his imagination. Thinking of this, he habitually pinched the green slime bracelet on his arm. His water mist field automatically collected the slimes, condensed them, and formed them into the bracelet these days. He had been used to wearing the bracelet on his arm every day. The good news is, we are not inferior to the Sky Sword's camp. Yun-Kei smiled with pleasure. I didn't expect there would be such a strong force in the water god's world. Chapter 239. The Water God's Song. Under the command of the Water God's priests, the girls who believe in the Water God can form a special spell formation called the Water God's Song. If a Water God's Song was formed by 1,000 ordinary girls, then its power would be stronger than most hero-ranked monsters. The only shortcoming of this special spell formation is that its members must work in coordination, so they need to practice a lot for it, and if a member died, the special spell formation's power would be greatly reduced. Yun-Kei gazed at Yun-Shi and continued, "This time, we have 1,000,000 bride candidates and the 3 strongest high priestesses. Our biggest advantage is, they are immortal in your Mist Soul army. In this case, the Water God's Song's biggest shortcoming has been offset. As long as you're not dead, the Water God's Song won't stop." Yun-Kei said with enthusiasm as her eyes brightened up. The girls' bloodlines could resonate with each other, forming a power that was greater than most hero-ranked beings. Yun-Kei thought that if she didn't come to the Water God's world, she would never have imagined its existence. The Water God's Song was such a miraculous trump card, which was created to fight against the monsters from the Mist Tide. In Celian, there were 3 standing teams of 1,000 priestesses. In peaceful time, they would practice the Water God's Song together, and when the Mist Tide appeared, they would go to fight the monsters in the Mist Tide. Teams of priestesses? Does that mean? Yun-Shi had a guess. Yes, the 3 high priestesses are the 3 teams' leaders. It's really a good deal having their support. Even though she hated Yun-Hai's shameless and salacious personality, she had to admit that he did the right thing. With their help, we can form a Water God Song that is over 10,000 people. It's really good that we have earned their trust. So, they are so good, Yun-Shi murmured as he remembered the 3 queens' faces. Are you ready? Yun-Kei picked up the portraits on the table. They were the portraits of the most excellent girls Yun-Kei had specially selected for Yun-Shi, who would become the core members of Yun-Shi's Mist Soul army. Even Yun-Kei had to admit that the Water God's world had too many excellent girls. They were the hope and the future of this world. Again, Yun-Kei sensed the Water God's favor in Yun-Shi. He really was being loved by the god and this world. Yes, since this is my mission, since I'm the only person who can do it, then I will shoulder this mission's responsibility and do whatever I can do to save this world. Yun-Shi could see that Side Quest 4 was shining in his Starchild love system. To love, Starchild. To witness and experience this fantastic world, then find the truth. Only in this case will you know how to love. The plan will start tomorrow. Yun-Kei put a pile of documents in front of Yun-Shi. Although she felt sick to do it, she still did her best to help Yun-Shi. For victory, she could agree to Yun-Shi's proposal with her true identity and become the commander of the Mist Soul army. In order to become stronger, she could accept and even make use of this world's ridiculous rules. 1,000,000 brides. I will try my best. Yun-Shi looked through the portraits. He knew he wasn't really going to marry 1,000,000 girls. After he finished his quests in this world and left, they would all wake up into the real world and forget the things that happened in this world. However, Yun-Shi wouldn't forget them. At the very least, they were here now. They were breathing the same air and feeling the same sunshine with him. He would propose to them tomorrow. This night, many people wouldn't go to sleep. In the Lamia race's cave, our queen has stolen the apostle's heart. She is too experienced. I also want to do this thing and that thing with the apostle. Thea wants to grow up quickly. The Lamias chattered. They had made an unanimous decision that tomorrow they would propose to the apostle together at the ceremony. In the mermaid's palace, a group of mermaids gathered around the mermaid queen and listened to her story with the apostle. Oh, my friends, I'm sorry, but I won't give him to anyone else. We are best friends since our childhoods, but I won't share him with you. Forgive me. For love, I can give up anything. The mermaids really liked to experience sad love. Finally, in the Celian queen's family, are you sure? Yes. Our queen has decided to marry the apostle. Our queen is the god's priestess. If our god wants to see that future, then our queen must respond to the apostle's expectations, The most honorable apostle has appeared. You all know what that means. All Elizabethans, play your cards right. The water god's song will never stop. Chapter 240. The Little Rabbit in the Morning. Dang, dong, dang. The bell of blessing echoed in the sky above the city again. This time, the bell wasn't ringing for anyone, but for a thing that nobody had guessed. Apart from the three high priestesses, Yun-Kei and Yun-Shi, no one had ever imagined such a thing. Yun-Shi opened his eyes. He turned his head and looked at Lu. The scenes from last night still hovered in his mind. After having relationships with the three high priestesses, his self-control had been greatly reduced. Last night, he went back to his room and found that Lu was sleeping in his bed. Vaguely, he took her as one of the three queens. When he realized that the feet in his hands were too pure and tender, which obviously did not belong to any of the three queens, Lu was almost on the verge of tears. However, much to her credit, she didn't run away. She was frightened, but she still painstakingly kept her voice down. Her whimpering and the warm feel of her skin had all worked together to make Yun-Shi to lose his mind. Her feet were small, but the feel was unbelievably good. Her white toenails were as cute as a row of pearls. As her two crystal-like small feet shook in his hands, her body trembled as if she was a poor, scared little doggy. Her cute face was as sweet as fruit sugar, and her lips were as juicy as cherries. Yun-Shi thought that he could taste them all day and would never feel bored. The result was, Yun-Shi didn't sleep all night. Although he finally stopped before taking the last step, he had done everything else apart from that. Yun-Shi clearly knew that he shouldn't taste this fruit, but as guilt filled within his heart, he still failed to resist Lu's temptation. As for Lu, when Yun-Shi held her feet in his hands, she had already given up resisting and let Yun-Shi taste her lips fully. Before she had stealthily walked into Yun-Shi's room, she went to the water god temple's fountain and bathed her body in the medicinal herbal water. As the result, her skin was as smooth as silk fabrics and also as sweet as cream brulee. The aroma of herb covered her whole body. Yun-Shi put down Lu's feet and put his hands on her shoulders. His lips gently stroked Lu's lips, then covered her mouth tightly. Their tongues tangled together. Lu's saliva was as sweet as honey, letting Yun-Shi drunkenly suck her tongue for more. Symbolically, Lu slightly resisted him. She softly put her hands on his chest and nudged him, but her innocent clear eyes had already closed and waited for Yun-Shi's next assault. Her long eyelashes fluttered as her body struggled in Yun-Shi's arms. However, how could her teeth stop Yun-Shi's experienced kiss? After a few tries, Yun-Shi's tongue had opened her teeth and tasted her tongue with abandon. As her body became hotter and hotter, finally, she was lost in the great pleasure and forgot everything else. As her toes curled and straightened, her legs subconsciously kicked in the air. "Oh, Apostle, don't please. I'm afraid," Lu entreated. In the end, she wasn't a non-human like the Lamia Queen nor the Mermaid Queen, and she didn't have a strong will like the Celian Queen. Before she became a member of the Starwing Knights, she was just an ordinary girl. If she didn't go to the small village and take part in the Sword Palace examination, probably she would have married someone in her hometown. Most female swordsmen who couldn't pass the Sword Palace examination would marry someone sooner or later, because the fact of failing to be selected has proved that they didn't have a future in the path of the sword. Not everyone was as talented as Xiao Chao, who could step onto her own hero's journey with her mortal sword. After waking up in the water god's world, Lu became a talented pharmacist and had found her own hero's journey. But in a natural way, she was still that normal, innocent girl. While she was really facing the most important moment in her life, she was so nervous that she could barely speak. Listening to her entreaty, Yun-Shi finally realized that she wasn't like any of the three high priestesses. She wasn't a native of this world, so she wouldn't be charmed by the water god's power on his body. When she agreed to his proposal, she really thought that she would be his wife forever. No matter how many loves he had obtained through the three high priestesses, in Yun-Shi's heart, Lu was still his first fiancée. She was still that pharmacist girl who bravely responded to his proposal first. "Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you," Yunshi's look toned down as his desire had also drained away. He drew back his hands from her shoulders and put them back onto her feet. No, it's just too fast. I'm not prepared yet. My apostle, can you give me more time? Lulu blushed as her feet trembled in Yunshi's palms. Her shy face was so cute, as if she were a little rabbit that was going to be eaten by the big bad wolf. Chapter 241. Sailing Jellyfish's Robe. After enjoying the little rabbit, the new day had begun. With the young water god's priestess's help, Yunshi put on a long robe, which he had never seen before, but he thought that it must be very valuable. After putting the green slime bracelet on his arm, Yunshi looked at the mirror. He could barely recognize that man in the mirror was himself. This robe was made of a fantastic deep-sea creature's exuviation. It had light silver color, which looked to be a perfect fit with Yunshi's white emperor mask. The deep-sea creature was called Sailing Jellyfish, and it was sacred in this world, because all sea demons, including mermaids and lamias, saw it as a symbol of the great water god. Sailing jellyfishes would molt their shells every other 1,000 years. The mermaids would collect their shells to make robes. Till now, there were only 4 complete sailing jellyfishes' robes in this world. The first 3 robes were the Mermaid Queen's rochet, the Lamia Queen's campaign gown, and the Celian Queen's priestess robe. Although their styles and colors were different, their raw materials were the same. At this moment, Yunshi was wearing the 4th robe, the treasure made by a part of the rarest fantastic creature's shell. After putting on the robe, Yunshi could feel that his control of the moisture in the air had been enhanced by 30%, and the robe could automatically filter harmful substances in the air. Moreover, it seemed that this old robe could even increase its owner's aura. The 3 high priestesses' robes could make them look more attractive, and Yunshi's robe could make him look more handsome and mature. At the very least, when Yunshi looked at the man in the mirror, he had a feeling that he could trust this man with all his heart. The sailing jellyfish's robe and the white emperor mask were really a match made in heaven. Yunshi habitually rubbed the green slime bracelet on his arm, then stood in front of the mirror alone, waiting for the coming ceremony. He looked at his mirror image and murmured to himself, "Yunshi, you should know you are not fighting for yourself. You are fighting for this world, for the girls who have faith in you. Maybe the thing you are going to do sounds ridiculous, and it's indeed ridiculous, but there is a reason. Since you have chosen this way, you must hold on to the very end. You shouldn't be afraid of anything now." Yunshi clenched his fists. At this moment, on his white emperor mask, there were already 4 special marks on 4 of the 6 sharp silver horns. The first mark was from the mysterious dark elf, the commander of his mist soul army, Black Moon. The second mark was from the enthusiastic Lamia Queen, the queen of all sea demons, one of the top-class hero-ranked beings in this world. The third mark was from the jealous Mermaid Queen, the queen of the mermaids, the best harp entertainer in this world. The fourth mark was from the human high priestess, the ruler of the city of water, the holder of the water god's scepter, the Celian Queen. After obtaining the 4 brides, he ranked his fiancée's power, and even Yunshi himself didn't know how strong he was now. Every minute and every second, he could perceive that his mist soul army was becoming stronger and stronger. Why did the stars create this trial world? What could he obtain from this world? He had a feeling that he would know the truth soon after today. Huff! Yunshi took a deep breath, then walked out of the door. The apostle. Lulu looked at Yunshi with her gentle eyes. "Yo, give me some bread. I won't let you go before you give me bread." Ling Ling laughed. She still behaved so carefree. "Are you ready? Oh my, how many brides do you want to have? You have called so many unmarried girls." Mei Lan complained, but Yunshi knew that it was her special way of showing her care. Apart from the twin witches, Hua Hua, Hua Yu, and Xiao Chao, all the girls of the Starwing Knights had gathered together here today. Yunshi understood that they should have joined the Sky Swords camp. In fact, if the water god didn't find him directly and chose him to be its apostle, he should also be in the Sky Swords camp now. Yunshi had never imagined that someday he would fight against his unbeatable childhood sweetheart, Hua Hua. Unfortunately, from the beginning, he had no choice. I hope that Hua Hua will never know what has happened in this world, Yunxi prayed. Although he knew that it was just an unrealistic fantasy, he knew that Hua Hua would definitely go crazy if she knew what he had done. And the thing he was going to do today would make Hua Hua explode like an erupting volcano. Apostle, everything is ready. Please convey your true love to them all. You will be pleased no matter what kind of bride you want. The young priestesses still didn't know Yunxi's plan. They looked at him with expectation. Several of them were Elizabethan. In order to let them serve Yunxi, their families had went out of their way to make an effort to help the cause. In fact, all unmarried girls in this world had been tempted by Yunxi's proposal ceremony. To the people in this world, the water god was their supreme lord. Naturally, the water god's apostle was very special and worthy of mentioning. Thank you. Looking at the priestesses, who had been selected to be his Mist Soul Army's future commanders by Yunxi thanked them in a relaxed tone. The last moment had finally begun. Go ahead, Yunxi. P.S. Volume 1 and Volume 2 of Starchild Escape's Arranged Marriage. https://www.amazon.com/dp/b07d6dd5h5 from C1 to C62. https://www.amazon.com/dp/b07dyd59q6 from C63 to C144. If any of the two volumes can enter the top 10,000 ranking before July 31st, 2018, I will release 6 chapters per week. If any of the two volumes can enter the top 5,000 ranking before July 31st, 2018, I will release 7 chapters per week. Also, if anyone buys and leaves a comment on the Amazon pages, I will post an additional chapter as a token of my gratitude. Chapter 242. The Girls Who Are Studying Hard in Celian. The Celian Queen, the Lamia Queen, the Mermaid Queen, their people, and the girls from all over the world were gathering together on the square in front of the Water God Temple. For Yunxi's plan, the Celian Queen even ordered all the residents to pull all the buildings around the Water God Temple and finally built this special square. It was so large that it contained dozens of fountains and spread all the way to the seashore. Beside the sacred fountains, humans, lamias, mermaids, and all the girls of other races gathered together in groups based on their races. They chatted about this special ceremony with excitement. This world never had a ceremony called the Water God's Apostles' Proposal Plan, and probably would never have another again. Did you hear about it? The apostle is a very excellent, handsome, and mature man. Yes, I saw him once from a distance. His silver mask is very cool. The human girls gleefully talked about Yunhai, especially the girls who had seen the apostle before, but everyone who hadn't were feeling jealous. Compared to them, the lamias looked much more leisurely because they had already known the result many days ago. Therefore, when they looked at the human girls' nervous expressions, they laughed in their hearts. As for the topic they were talking about, it was slightly adults only. Thea, we will teach you the knowledge of being a lamia lady. The first night with your lover is very important. You must do your best. The apostle is protected by the great water god's power, so you don't need to worry about his body. The only thing you need to consider is how to enjoy your first night. Although the lamias were just some armchair strategists who had no practical experience, it wouldn't stop them from teaching poor young Thea what she should do during her first night. Oh. Thea blushed. Her tail wagged, espousing her excited heart. I'm finally learning the special wooing of us lamias. So this is the secret. This is what I should do. Thea, come here. This is the textbook. Looking around and making sure that no one else was looking at this place, the oldest lamia put a book into Thea's hands. The Shameless Demon and 1,000 Princesses was the textbook's name. Looking at this precious prohibited book, Thea realized that her sisters finally considered her as an adult. In the past, when she found this book, her sisters stopped her and told her, "You are too young to read it." After opening the first page of this prohibited book, Thea had been shocked by the erotic illustration and the exciting description. A brand new world was slowly opening in front of her. Is this the adult's world? It's so exciting and tempting. Amongst the mermaids, a similar thing was happening. Those lamias are serious. Be quick, be quick. Who has our prohibited precious book? We mermaids can't lose to those brainless lamias. It's our destiny to steal a lamia's lover. The mermaids had a natural sense of competition with the lamias. Although their queens were friends, they didn't mind trying to hamper the lamias. I found it. I found it. Be careful. It's a very rare book. The Shameless Demon and His Sister's Secret Garden. Yes, this is it. I heard that there were more books of the Demon series. These illustrations are great. They must be an artistic master's masterpieces. Even in the whole world, there are not too many books of this series. Little girls, come here and study. The mermaids said with enthusiasm. Hearing their conversation, even the girls of other sea demon races also stealthily looked at the book. Their races weren't as privileged as the Lamia race and the mermaid race. Most of their partners weren't even intellectual, because only very few sea demons could gain intelligence and know how to turn into human form. Based on their living areas, the sea demons in shallow seas would become mermaid subordinates, and the sea demons in deep seas would become Lamia subordinates. They also found a similar book in their race's treasure cave. Just like the Lamia's book and the mermaid's book, it was also a real original book from a real drawing master. Is this the method of how humans copulate? That posture is embarrassing. Will we do the same thing every night after we marry the apostle? But my race can produce descendants simply by exchanging each other's genes. The sea demon girls talked with each other and passed around for perusal the book called The Shameless Demon and Monster Girls Game. It seemed that all the races in this world had a book of the demon series. They were prohibited books, but also excellent beginner books. At any rate, from the girls' red faces and pounding hearts, these books were very effective. After a while, a special aura spread around the girls in the square. P.S. Volume 1 and Volume 2 of Starchild Escapes Arranged Marriage. https://www.amazon.com/dp/b07d6dd5h5 from C1 to C62. https://www.amazon.com/dp/b07dyd59q6 from C63 to C144. If any of the two volumes can enter the top 10,000 ranking before July 31st, 2018, I will release 6 chapters per week. If any of the two volumes can enter the top 5,000 ranking before July 31st, 2018, I will release 7 chapters per week. Also, if anyone buys and leaves a comment on the Amazon pages, I will post an additional chapter as a token of my gratitude. Chapter 243. A million brides' time moved forward, second by second, and would never stop for any reason. The moment of fate had finally arrived. With the silver mask on his face and the sacred robe on his body, Yunshi was clustered about by the 3 high priestesses as he stepped on the stage of his life. When he appeared on the stage, which was specially built for this ceremony, he caused a sensation to ripple throughout the city. For most people, this was the first time they saw a real apostle with their naked eyes. Even in all history, this apostle would be one of the highest ranking of the water god's servants, especially the young priestesses from the temples all over the world. When they saw Yunshi's silver mask, they couldn't help but put their palms together and prayed devoutly. Oh, is he the legendary apostle? He is young, but he looks so mature. Does such a great apostle really need to look for brides himself? If the girls who want to marry him lined up, the queue could probably crowd the streets to overflowing. Most people hadn't known of Yunshi's true plan. They just chattered with each other and looked at the apostle in surprise. Even though they had seen the apostle's portrait on the notice board before, many people still thought that the portrait was for reference only. Since this apostle even went to look for brides personally, his true appearance must be very special. Of course, it wasn't a big deal. Since he was the great water god's apostle, his appearance would be the smallest novelty in their minds. The apostles in the past were all elders who never cared about secular affairs. Therefore, this apostle was very special, and they would do everything to butter him up. For this moment, the 1,000,000 bride candidates on the square were all the most excellent girls in this world. In order to respond to his wish, they came to this city from all over the world. Humans, lamias, mermaids, and all the other races had all chosen their most beautiful unmarried girls. As the most predominant race, humans had almost sent all unmarried girls to the city. No one there was forced to be here. All these girls came prepared to fight for the right of becoming the apostles' brides. There were 1,000,000 girls in this city. No matter how many girls the apostle would marry, there would be no doubt that most girls would come back home empty-handed. Therefore, the competition would undoubtedly be very fierce. This was the foremost thought in most people's hearts. However, they were ready for it. Come on, no matter what dire condition they would face, none of them would give up. What's the best bride in the apostle's heart like? The apostle likes a girl who is good at cooking, martial arts, divine spells, or no matter what kind of girls the apostle likes, I won't lose to anyone. The girls all had so much confidence in their hearts. On the stage, Yunshi took a deep breath. Today, there were 1,000,000 girls here. Although it was just Yunkei's ridiculous plan at the first, he didn't think that it could happen. Nevertheless, it was really allowed in this world, and reached this point by going step by step. Now, he would perform the most important step in the whole plan. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening to my words. I say to you today, my friends, that I have a dream, a very special, even a strange dream. Today is a special day for me. Yunshi stretched out his hands. The green slime bracelet turned into a green light and circled around on his fingertip. I am looking for my bride, and I will sign a contract of never being separated with her. From today on, I will love her and take care of her. Where she goes, I go. If I leave, she leaves. I will love her, comfort her, respect her, protect her as my own, for better for worse, for richer for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love, honor, and cherish, till death do us part. We will never be separated. As long as the sun will still rise, I will offer you the warmest home. If possible, can you all agree to my proposal? The girls who are listening to my words, please make your choice. A continuous mist spread around from Yunshi's white emperor mask. At the same time, from the fountains and from the streams, there was also a continuous mist rising into the air. This was an unprecedented proposal in this world's history. 1 to 1,000,000. As his water mist field spread in the air, Yunshi had a mental bond with all the girls on the square. There was a fine, transparent thread of mist amongst all the girls and himself. They were the strings made by Yunshi's white emperor mask, which would change the whole world forever. Listening to Yunshi's marriage proposal, the three high priestesses looked at each other and smiled. The Lamia queen stepped forward first. The high priestesses were the strongest beings in this world. Apart from this, they also had the best singing voices. The Lamia queen faced the public and started singing her song of love. The song was about a princess meeting a prince, and its name was Dark Princess. I wandered in the darkness. I once dreamed of a whisper. Now, I see the road. Is that my fate? At the very least, at this moment, let me open my arms for you. This fantastic dream, my downtrodden wings, I will lower my head in the darkness, awaiting your coming. My tears wash my hands, my lips quiver in the darkness. Come to me. Look at me. Treat me as the finest princess in all the universe, my prince. Though I be covered with cuts and bruises, I will never betray our love. As long as I can stay beside you, darkness and sadness could even become warm. This searing yearning will witness our love. Our love will turn into light, ignite the darkness and achieve immortality. The princess was imprisoned on the tall tower day after day and year after year. She waited for a miracle. In the dark flames, she was finally saved by the prince from the endless cycle of time. This was the Lamia queen's love song for Yunshi. The Lamias and other girls of deep-sea races raised their hands. The threads amongst them and Yun she shook and turned into one beautiful crystal ring after another. They were the tokens of their love. They were these girls' answers. The next is my turn. The Mermaid Queen also stepped forward and began to sing. Compared to the Lamia Queen's song, the rhythm of her song was more sad, which was a perfect fit for the mermaid's romantic aura. The song was called The Lost Petal. My lover flew away from my hands along with the wind. It rolled in the air and flew to the sky, disappearing from my sight. The tree was engraved by the facts of our lost future. The spring has changed the world. The death of fall is coming. The flowers in full bloom are much more beautiful than the wind. Even if their petals have been destroyed, even if they have been forgotten, I will still follow the traces, looking for the fragments of my yearning. I collect the petals carefully, waiting for the next spring. My lover, when will you come from my dream and hug me again? Answer me if you can hear my song. Come back to me if you can feel my heartache. My lover, I will always be waiting for you. It was a song of a broken-hearted girl. That was sad, but with hope, filled with uneasy expectations. More than 30% of the girls cried after listening to its rhythm. Then, they raised their hands. Those girls who had hesitated before finally gave Yunxi their answers. 100,000, 200,000, 300,000. The number of his brides was increasing rapidly in Yunxi's Starchild love system. While the last and the most venerable queen, the best-known Celian queen, came on the stage, the atmosphere reached its highest point. The Celian queen was just a human, naturally. Her voice couldn't be as charming as the Lamia queens or the mermaid queens, because as sea demons, their voices could go beyond the limit of mankind's hearing. Therefore, she must be more empathetic and keep her focus on the song, so that she could touch people's hearts with her voice like the other two queens. Her song was called The Rhythm of Love. My past dreams wandered in the night's arms. My cute lover, help me look for my road. If this is our fate, let's go on our way. In my eyes, you are the sunlight through the leaves. You bring me courage and smiles. I can feel the transcendent love in your body. I smile under the sky because you are with me. My song is the token of my love, and I believe that you can hear my feelings across time and space. Happiness, sadness, worry, they are the rhythms of love. Anytime, any place, my song will be with you. I was born for you. I'm singing for you. The rhythm is flowing in my heart. Listen to it, my love. 500,000, 600,000, 700,000. In the sound of the Celian queen's singing, a great amount of power flocked into Yunxi's body. He could clearly feel the terrible energy waves through the mask on his face. Finally, the harvest time had begun. He had created this miracle with his own hands. With the three high priestesses' help, Yunxi reached an achievement that perhaps no one had ever achieved in the whole universe. 1,000,000 brides. As being surrounded in the countless mist, one beautiful girl after another raised their hands with expectations in their hearts. I really am a liar. Feeling the powers that were flowing into his body, Yunxi didn't look happy, but mocked himself. Yunkei's plan had a drawback that it would take Yunxi too much time if he proposed to the girls one by one. Therefore, they finally decided to let Yunxi propose to the 1,000,000 girls on the square together. In order to accomplish this, they had paid with a great deal of effort. And now, they finally got their efforts rewarded. This was Yunkei's expansion plan of 1,000,000 brides, especially tailored for Yunxi. Chapter 244. You will be the emperor. This day had become the most fantastic day in this world's history. In front of the old water god temple, countless fountains sent water columns skyward from underground. Voluminous mist spread throughout the city, making it the city of mist. In the water mist field, 1,000,000 beautiful girls were making their answer. I'm willing to take this honor. I'm willing to be your bride. Thank you for choosing me. I will be your power in return for your love. I swear to the great water god, I will be the apostle's wife forever. The girls' voices echoed through the sky, hovering around the old city of water like 1,000,000 beautiful melodies. One white hand after another raised in the air with expectation and longing in these girls' hearts. One crystal ring after another appeared on these beautiful girls' fingers. They were the proofs of their oaths and the signs of their accomplished marriage contracts. They accepted Yunxi without reservation. When even Yunxi himself didn't believe that he would succeed, their trusts made this plan come true. There were over 1,000,000 girls who had arrived at this city, and there were only dozens of girls who refused his proposals. Yunxi could sense a very weird aura from these girls' bodies. As they disappeared suddenly and mysteriously, Yunxi understood who they were. Shea Longness, the Sky Sword's coming had reached the last phase. Her will could even interfere with the reality now. The girls who just disappeared suddenly should be the slimes who had transformed into their human forms. Apart from these girls, all girls on the square said, "I'm willing to marry you," to Yunxi. Their faith in the water god and the three high priestesses' songs impressed them. The girls in the water god's world were all innocent and cute. None of them doubted whether Yunxi was lying. In order to save this world, I have to deceive them. Then, am I wrong, or is it this world's fault? Yunxi looked puzzled. He thought that he understood the star's quest better. Love is wonderful and sweet. He never doubted his love to Hua Hua. However, his understanding about this world and love had been changed. Loves were different. There was everlasting love of couples in this universe. There was loyal love to the god in this universe. There was jealous and uneasy love in this universe. Love wasn't a single property. It could be rendered as all kinds of emotions. Marriage wasn't one-to-one in this world, just like the custom in the Sky Sword God's domain. Instead, it was one-to-many. He had married 1,000,000 brides in this world. If even such a love was allowed in this world, then what couldn't be accepted? It seemed that the stars were using this method to teach him what you should accept all kinds of love means. However, the love in the eyes of the stars was too different from the love in humans' eyes. Marry 1,000,000 girls? It's just ridiculous. Yunxi felt as if he was dreaming when this unprecedented miracle came true. Well, from now on, you will take responsibility for us, Lamius. Of course, as their queen, you should care for me more, but it doesn't mean you can be bad to the rest of your wives. The Lamia queen looked cheerful. After losing the sailing jellyfishes over a century ago, finally, the Lamia race embraced hope again. The Lamias are too pushy, but I'm different. Don't forget to look for me when you are free. The mermaid queen teased. The aura is strange, but not bad, isn't it? The Celian queen coughed. Obviously, she had noticed the strange aura between the Lamia queen and the mermaid queen. From now on, we will put the fate of this world in your hands. You have been accepted by the three queens and have the White Emperor mask. Starting from today, you will become the emperor of the entire world. What? Yunxi was dumbfounded. You have married 1,000,000 girls. If you aren't the emperor, then who can be the emperor? The Lamia queen stood to Yunxi's right. Yes, if you aren't the emperor, it would be very strange. Not giving the slightest concession, the mermaid queen stood to Yunxi's left. As the leader of mankind and the Celian queen, I witnessed the birth of the emperor of the world. The Celian queen walked to Yunxi. She half-knelt and kissed Yunxi's hand. As the leader of the deep-sea demons and the Lamia queen, I witnessed the birth of the emperor of the world. The Lamia queen also lowered her head and kissed Yunxi's hand. As the leader of the shallow sea demons and the mermaid queen, I witnessed the birth of the emperor of the world. Finally, the mermaid queen also knelt and offered her blessing to Yunxi. The bell of blessing resounded across the skies. P.S. Volume 1 and Volume 2 of Starchild Escape's Arranged Marriage. https://www.amazon.com/dp/b07d6dd5h5 from C1 to C62. https://www.amazon.com/dp/b07dyd59q6 from C63 to C144. If any of the two volumes can enter the top 10,000 ranking before July 31st, 2018, I will release 6 chapters per week. If any of the two volumes can enter the top 5,000 ranking before July 31st, 2018, I will release 7 chapters per week. Also, if anyone buys and leaves a comment on the Amazon pages, I will post an additional chapter as a token of my gratitude. Chapter 245. The Broken-Hearted Boys. When the unprecedented White Emperor was born, on a hill outside of Celion, the Dark Shadow Spider Queen was looking at the sacred city from a distance. He is awesome. He deserves to be my thing. The slimes the Dark Shadow Spider Queen control had increased to 10 times more than before. Apart from these common green slimes, she also had dozens of high-class slimes who just escaped from the city. These high-class slimes looked like humans, because there were a lot of girls of deep-sea races in this city, so they successfully sneaked into the ceremony like fish in troubled waters. Unfortunately, their identities were exposed because their intelligence was too low. They didn't know how to respond to Yunshi's proposal. Seeing this, the Dark Shadow Spider Queen had to order them to retreat. He can even successfully propose to 1,000,000 girls. I want him more. The Dark Shadow Spider Queen licked her lips with a burning desire. That man could make yummy food from nothing and had excellent governability. Although she just took a glimpse to Yunshi through the slime's eyes, she could still sense the sweet smell of his body. Humph. He is just a phony publicity seeker. Such a salacious man isn't worth a hill of beans. Child Yun, he said in a contemptuous tone. However, the burning emotion called jealousy in his eyes had exposed what he was really thinking. I won't obtain the things I want with blandishments. I will rob all things with my strength. Child Yun, he ground his teeth. Even if he has succeeded marrying the 1,000,000 girls, then what? Can he really possess them all? Eventually, he is just a fribble, a liar. Yes, even if he has 1,000,000 brides, they can do no help for him. Yes, I have obtained the evil god Tlahua's Kalpantakutli's power. How will I be inferior to such a liar? Once I accomplish the blood sacrifice to the evil god, I can trample him as easy as stepping on an ant. It's too ridiculous to marry 1,000,000 girls. In the Sky Swords camp, the young boys complained. There must a hole in this guy's head. How can he himself satisfy 1,000,000 brides? What the hell is he doing? Some people got exasperated. I like that priestess. She also accepted that man's proposal. She must have been hoodwinked. Some people were utterly disheartened. Burn, 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 kill, kill, kill. Some people went crazy with jealousy. They had held torches and sickles in their hands. Before the battle between the two camps started, the young boys of the Sky Swords camp had had a common goal. Catch that pervert called White Emperor and cut him into 1,000 pieces. From the bread-making ability he had showed in the small village, this man couldn't be a native but a person from another world, just like them all. Because this world didn't have a food called bread, not even the making method. When they arrived at this world, they were placed on an island with monsters everywhere. They were hungry and thirsty. Fortunately, Child Yun he summoned the evil god Tlahua's Kalpantakutli and led them so they could leave the island. Otherwise, they would all have starved to death. As for this man, he first arrived at this world and then immediately became the god's apostle. He was respected everywhere. Even when he said, I want to marry 1,000,000 girls, the whole of this world still revolved around him. What had they experienced in this world? Death trials, tall bird, blood-eye crow, red hound, blue hound, deer clop. They would never know what kind of monster would rush out from the mist and take away their lives. Even if they died, they would revive in a random place on the island. The countless deaths and rebirths had tortured them in hell. Finally, when Child Yun he told them that they could escape from this painful cycle of mortality, once they believed in the evil god Tlahua's Kalpantakutli, they all accepted it. After that, they joined the evil god's camp and escaped from the deadly island. Then they cooperated with the Sky Swords camp and finally became the Dark Shadow Spider Queen's collaborators. Remembering the miserable experience they had suffered and the handsome treatment the White Emperor had enjoyed, these young boys only wanted to cry. We are all outsiders to this world. Why are you the only one who can be treated with kindness? If this world is a trial, then we must be experiencing the Pell mode, and the White Emperor is experiencing the easy mode. No, he is like playing the easy mode with a cheat. Even now, they could also vaguely hear the girl's laugh from a distance. Oh, what a beautiful ring. Am I not dreaming? A young priestess looked at her hand in surprise and pinched her hand. Incidentally, she was one of the young boy's dream lover. No, I can't feel pain from my hand. Am I really dreaming? No, let me pinch my hand again. Of course you don't feel pain. You are pinching my hand. The young priestess partner complained. No, I want to die. I have never been so angry in my life. I will take revenge on him. I will sell myself to the great evil god Tlahuas Kalpantakutli. I will take my dream lover back. On the hill, the young boys cried and cursed their unlucky fate, wailed like ghosts and howled like wolves. P.S. Volume 1 and Volume 2 of Starchild Escapes Arranged Marriage. https://www.amazon.com/dp/b07d6dd5h5 from C1 to C62. https://www.amazon.com/dp/b07dyd59q6 from C63 to C144. If any of the two volumes can enter the top 10,000 ranking before July 31st, 2018, I will release 6 chapters per week. If any of the two volumes can enter the top 5,000 ranking before July 31st, 2018, I will release 7 chapters per week. Also, if anyone buys and leaves a comment on the Amazon pages, I will post an additional chapter as a token of my gratitude. Chapter 246. Embark on the road the next 3 days. The people of the whole city sank to immerse up and down in the atmosphere of the merriment. After accepting Yunshi's proposal, the girls from all over the world started to decorate the old city of water with all their enthusiasm. Because there were really too many brides, the betrothal gifts were so many that they could even fill dozens of palaces. These girls laughed and sang the songs they learned from the 3 high priestesses, expressing their joyful feeling. Looking at these girls from the top of the tall bell tower, Yunshi showed a thoughtful expression on his face. This moment, he was thinking about the truth of the universe and the theory of everything. Come on, stop pretending. I know you have already grinned from ear to ear in your heart, but I tell you, really, don't do anything to them. Yun-Kei sneered in a cold tone. She stared at Yun-Shi as if she was looking at a pile of garbage. They're all good girls. It's too pity to let them fall into your hands. Yes, I don't deserve to have them. I'm already very satisfied to have their mist souls. Yun-Shi shrugged his shoulders. He didn't sit idle all day in the past 3 days. Instead, he studied how to command his mist soul army with all his heart and soul. With the help from the 3 high priestesses and Yun-Kei, he finally figured out something. I'm really curious about you. Although I'm the one who suggested you to do it, this plan shouldn't have been accomplished so perfectly. Who are you? Why can you do this? Yun-Kei questioned Yun-Shi with confusion in her eyes. The more she knew the man who called himself Yun-Hai, the more surprising features she could find in him. She did propose the expansion plan of 1,000,000 brides, however, she didn't really think that the number of Yun-Shi's brides could reach 1,000,000. Is he really a human? Even if he is a god, it's hard to believe that he can achieve such a miracle. What charm does he have? How could he capture 1,000,000 young girls' hearts so easily? This was so ridiculous. She had no theory to explain it. As an elite assassin of the 10 Leaves Alliance, she had seen too many things and experienced too many battles. However, she still hadn't saw anyone who was similar to this Yun-Hai. Probably it's because there is a great will that is blessing me. Yun-Shi referred to the stars. After all the things that had happened were parts of the stars' plan. He was the only person who knew that this world was just a trial for himself. Humph. It's difficult to understand why the water god likes you so much. Of course, Yun-Kei didn't know the existence of the stars. She thought that the great will Yun-Shi said before meant the water god. About this, I don't understand either. Yun-Shi also felt strange about this. Why would the water god find him immediately after he left the bonfire? Why would the water god confer him the white emperor mask without hesitation? Everything started from that moment. At the beginning, he planned to join the Sky Swords camp and fight together with his childhood sweetheart, Hua Hua, but now, he had stepped on this road of no return. Whatever, but you shouldn't have any more contact with these girls. Now, it's time to leave this city. It's time to save this world. Yun-Kei stood upright with strong determination in her eyes. Everything she did was for this moment. She didn't mind being called unscrupulous and ruthless, because she had judged it with the balance of her justice. Compared to finding the most excellent bride for the water god, the expansion plan of A Million Brides was more effective. Now, Shea Longness, the Sky Sword's coming had reached its last phase, and she had also found out where the Sky Sword's base camp was. The Island of Mist. It was the scariest place in this world. Even the 3 high priestesses were prohibited to go to there. At the same time, it was also the most chaotic area in this world, where it was easy to summon living beings into this world from outside worlds. According to what she had known from the Lamias and the mermaids, they had seen a lot of living beings suddenly appearing on the island. Although they were also from other worlds, they had chosen the Sky Swords camp, and the Island of Mist had become the location of the Sky Swords camp. Yes, I will fight for them. I want to do something for these girls who believe in me. She slowly stood up and looked at the city together with Yun Quebec. Since I have given them my promise, I must protect them and create a beautiful homeworld for them. Yun-Kei looked at Yun-Shi in surprise. Maybe this man isn't totally helpless. However, it won't change the fact that he is still too salacious. Let's go. Maybe I can attend your wedding when we come back. It must be very pleasing to marry a million girls, don't you think so? Yun-Kei teased. Yun-Shi gave her a quizzical look. Why do your words make me have an ominous presentiment? As white mist rose from the ground, Yun-Shi and Yun-Kei embarked on their road. The next, they would face the strongest being in the Sky Sword God's domain. In the Water God Temple, the 3 high priestesses watched Yun-Shi and Yun-Kei on the mirrored surface of the Sea Demon's mirror. I'm worried about them. Why don't we go with them? The Lamia Queen looked anxious. Yes, as his bride, I should fight shoulder to shoulder with him at this moment. The Mermaid Queen said with a bad feeling in her heart. She could feel a special atmosphere between Yun-Shi and Yun-Quebec. Don't doubt his choice. It's a forbidden area to us all. Besides, we have offered him our powers, so we should trust him. We should believe that he can return in peace and live happily with us forever after that. The Celian Queen shook the water god's scepter with a tender look. On the tall tower, the bell rang again. Blessing for the 2 apostles. P.S. Volume 1 and Volume 2 of Starchild Escape's Arranged Marriage. https://www.amazon.com/dp/b07d6dd5h5 from C1 to C62. https://www.amazon.com/dp/b07dyd59q6 from C63 to C144. If any of the 2 volumes can enter the top 10,000 ranking before July 31, 2018, I will release 6 chapters per week. If any of the 2 volumes can enter the top 5,000 ranking before July 31, 2018, I will release 7 chapters per week. Also, if anyone buys and leaves a comment on the Amazon pages, I will post an additional chapter as a token of my gratitude. Chapter 247. The Frightening Army. After leaving the Celian city, Yun-Shi and Yun-Kei flew all day and all night and finally arrived at the Forbidden Zone, where the Celian Queen was severely injured and returned with disappointment. The mist is thick. Is this the source of all mist tides in this world? Looking at the huge wall of mist from hundreds of meters away, Yun-Kei could sense a huge evil intention inside it. Unlike the common mist all over the water god's world, the mist here was cold and suffocating. She could imagine what a disaster it would become if the mist here spread around this world. From the countless records about mist tide, Yun-Shi had seen countless names on the bloody death list. The people who had survived the mist tides could even be counted by bending the fingers. especially males. There was barely no man who had survived any mist tide. The mist here is strange. As the White Emperor Mask's owner, she could control all mists in this world. Naturally, he sensed something unusual in the mist. The mist not only contained the water god's smell, there was something else inside it. From the very first day she came to this world, he could feel the water god's love for this world. There were sweet spring waters and delicious fruits all over this world. The land so was fertile, where anyone could feed the population 10 times or more. If there wasn't any mist tide in this world, the water god's world could be more beautiful and peaceful. I have a bad feeling. Maybe we are still too slow. Kei's sharp eyes were looking at some strange creatures who were wandering around on the edge of the mist. These creatures had green bodies. No, it wasn't the crystal green of the common slimes, but a much darker, mud-like green. Apart from this, their bodies were also too huge that they couldn't hide in the mist. Are they giant slimes? These strange green slimes were all as big as a small hill. The smallest giant slime was about 10 meters tall, and the biggest giant slime was over 30 meters tall. The most important thing was, they were eating each other and becoming much bigger. She could imagine what would happen if they left the island of mist. They were not as harmless as the common green slimes. Their huge bodies would become a big moving disaster to the people in this world. Let's fight. Kei drew her black long bow. They had done everything they could do, and now it was time to fight. Only the victor could obtain the future. This world didn't need two godlike beings. Between the water god and the sky sword, only one of them could become this world's master. Open the door. My brides, come to this world. She stretched out his hand and waved in the air. A mist door appeared and opened behind him. A well-organized mist soul army walked out of the mist door behind Shi. The mist souls floated in the air, above the limitless sea surface. 4/5 of them were humans, and 1/5 of them were sea demons. They were all Shi's brides. The total number of Shi's mist soul brides was 1,001,370. They were the last result of Kei's expansion plan of a million brides. In the front of Shea Longness, the Sky Sword Slime Army, only Shi's Mist Soul Army had the possibility to defeat them all. Attack the enemies. Kei took a glance at the Dark Elf in the center of the Mist Soul Army, then moved her eyes back and drew the longbow in her hand. Countless red lotus arrows shot to the giant slimes from Kei's longbow. The Dark Elf Mist Soul raised the black sword in her hand and commanded other Mist Souls in silence. She didn't need to speak, because Mist Souls had a special mental bond amongst each other. This was a perfect army that all commanding officers had dreamed of. Boom, 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 boom. With earth-shaking explosion, the Mist Soul army pressed forward with indomitable will. They wouldn't die and wouldn't feel afraid. Even if their partners' bodies had been torn into pieces in the explosion or were squashed by the giant slimes, their hearts wouldn't shake. On the contrary, their attacks could actually hit on the giant slimes' bodies. Swords, arrows, magics, and divine spells, they all caused true damage to these giant slimes. After shooting an arrow, Kei had found that she didn't need to attack anymore, because the Mist Soul army had overwhelmed the giant slimes. They were faster than lightning and more nimble than the leaves in the wind. Kei couldn't describe how strong this army was, because even the 10 Leaves Alliance didn't have such a super army. As the first line of defense of the Sky Sword's camp, the giant slimes couldn't even hold on 15 minutes. Before that, they had all been slaughtered and only left a pile of green cores on the ground. Under the Dark Elf's control, the Mist Soul army exposed a terrifying force. Their swords could cut open the sea and the sky. Their spells could summon hails, lightning, and storms. The Mist Soul army was formed by 1,000,000 girls, which meant that the army could use almost all attacking methods these girls knew and their bloodline powers. When these girls' powers were gathered together and controlled by a great commander, the Dark Elf, their actual power was even stronger than Kei had guessed. This battle is over. She stepped on the island and picked up one green core after another from the ground. The green bracelet on Shi's arm looked very interested in the green cores. It immediately absorbed these green cores all. Your Mist Soul army is really a horrible monster, Yun-Kei said. Although this army was created by herself, and her Mist Soul was even this army's commander, Yun-Kei still thought that its power was much too strong and that it shouldn't be able to appear in this world. P.S. Volume 1 and Volume 2 of Starchild Escape's Arranged Marriage. https://www.amazon.com/dp/b07d6dd5h5 from C1 to C62. https://www.amazon.com/dp/b07dyd59q6 from C63 to C144. Chapter 248. The third phase, the giant slime flock, which could destroy a kingdom easily, was killed by Yun-Shi's Mist Soul army within 15 minutes. Even if it was the Tin Leaves Alliance's elite army, without hero-ranked warriors' assistance, they would need to pay a heavy price to defeat these tough enemies. But now, the Mist Soul army slaughtered these giant slimes like breaking a dead branch from a tree. Till now, Yun-Shi had only put 10,000 Mist Souls into the battlefield, and most Mist Souls were still staying behind the Mist Door. It's so lucky that we are in the same camp. Yun-Kei sorted out her feelings. Is my Mist Soul really the supreme commander of this strong army? It's like a dream. It's because we have an excellent commander. I'm not good at commanding the army, and it was all the Dark Elf Mist Soul's credit. Thank you for your recommendation. Yun-Shi looked at the Dark Elf Mist Soul with a sheepish look. The Dark Elf was standing in the front row of all Mist Souls. Because she wouldn't die, she didn't need to be protected by the army. Instead, she led the charge as a vanguard. Yun-Shi could see that she was familiar with battle. Under her leadership, the Mist Soul army was about 2 times stronger than when he commanded the army. Before she used her hero-ranked ability, the Mist Soul army had wiped out all the giant slimes quickly. Yun-Kei's recommendation was remarkable. The dark elf named Black Moon was born to be a war leader. However, when Yun-Shi looked at the dark elf, he could feel her loneliness. Nothing praiseworthy, because great command capability can be learned through practice. There are many excellent commanders in the universe, however. Your Mist Soul army is unique. Looking at her own projection, the lonely dark elf in the Mist Soul army, Yun-Kei smiled bitterly. As an assassin, why did she have such a great command capability? The reason was cruel. For her mission, for her justice, she had stepped onto countless battlefields and had stained her hands with blood a long time ago. Her justice wasn't without a price. For victory, she had made cruel choices many times and had given up many people who believed in her. Everything was for victory, because only the victor could obtain the future. Let's keep moving. I have a feeling that this battle will be very cruel. Before they stepped on the island, they had encountered so many giant slimes. This fact made Yun-Kei have a very bad feeling in her heart. Shea Longness, the sky sword's erosion of this world was faster and deeper than her imagination. The information she had collected in the Celian city was probably just a small portion of the sky sword's actual power. I have the same feeling. Many smells in the mist don't belong to this world. Yun-Shi sniffed, feeling a vague, tingling sensation through his white emperor mask. Bang! 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 Quickly, their bad feelings came true. With a spate of explosive sounds, something happened. One slime after another gushed out of the ground and the water, flocking to Yun-Shi and Yun-Quebec. Poison slime, marsh slime, ice slime, metal slime, lava slime, rock slime, giant slime, silver slime. Yun-Kei had mentioned that there would be all kinds of slimes appearing in the second phase of the Sky Sword's coming. Now, they all appeared and rushed to them from the mist. There was a special network amongst all the slimes. When the giant slimes were killed off, the slimes in the mist immediately knew it and made their response. Let's continue our fight. Yun-Kei drew her black longbow with blood mark in her eyes. Open up, the door of Mist Souls. Yun-Shi summoned the mist door again. Instantly, One row of mist souls after another walked out of the door and onto the battlefield. In the deepest side of the island of mist, the dark shadow spider queen was sitting on her dark shadow throne. Her naked toes lightly touched the big net in front of her. Most of the area on the island had been covered in this big net, becoming the dark shadow spider queen's territory. This was the queen's favorite tactic, capturing her prey in the net, then let them choke to death in despair. 74%. With the power from the sky sword, this net was 100 times bigger than all the nets she could weave before. 75%. Countless slimes were invading into the largest forbidden area in this world, the Island of Mist. The progress meant that they had occupied 3/4 of the space on this island, which also stood for the progress of the Sky Sword's coming. What Yun Shi and Yun Ke had known was far away from the truth. Even before they entered the Celian city, the first Golden Slime King had been born. Soon after, the second, the third. Every Golden Slime King was like a node. They built a coordinate system, guiding the Sky Sword's avatar the way to this world. This world was covered with the Water God's power. As a Sky Sword, Shea Longness was one of the strongest beings in the Sky Sword God's domain. Even so, it wasn't easy for her to descend into this world. She must be guided by suitable nodes and the coordinate system, so that she would be able to squeeze into this world through a sufficiently large spatial channel. Now, Shea Longness, the Sky Sword's coming had started the countdown. As a void creature, the Dark Shadow Spider Queen could naturally find the weakest spatial point of any world. The Island of Mist was the best landing place she chose for the Sky Sword. P.S. Volume 1 and Volume 2 of Starchild Escape's Arranged Marriage. https://www.amazon.com/dp/b07d6dd5h5 from C1 to C62. https://www.amazon.com/dp/b07dyd59q6 from C63 to C144. Chapter 249. Hua Hua arrives at the battlefield. This was the weakest spatial point in the Water God's world, and was also the source of the mist tide that people feared. The monsters from the mist tide were living on this island. They moved along the mist tide and hunted the creatures who were carelessly involved into the mist. When the mist tide faded away, they would return to the island of mist themselves. The people in this world didn't understand the principle behind it, neither the Dark Shadow Spider Queen, but she didn't mind it. She only took this place as the Sky Sword's landing place in the nest of her phase spiders. After the first Golden Slime Queen was born, she ordered all special slimes to go to this island once they were born. As a result, slimes had almost occupied half of the space on the island. The people who hadn't seen Shea Longness, the Sky Sword, could never imagine how strong her true power was. This world's moving disaster, the brutal monsters in the mist tide, had almost all been killed off by these slimes. Those special monsters who had once driven the young boys up the wall had all become the slime's food. Apart from the central area, where the strongest bone dragon inhabited, the Island of Mist had become the base camp of the Sky Sword. When Yun Shi and Yun Ke went to this place, it was like two sheep went into a tiger's mouth. In the wilds on the Island of Mist, a cruel battle had entered its hottest stage. Boom, boom. One red lotus arrow after another exploded amongst the slimes, clearing a wide area in the range of dozens of meters. But soon, more and more slimes had gushed out from the mist and filled the vacancy again. These slimes could be regarded as the Slime Army's hero units. They were not harmless low-grade monsters anymore. Instead, they all had special abilities. Poison slime could spit venom. Ice slime was protected by a halo of ice. Giant slime bodies were already a heavy weapon. Lava slime body temperature was so high that it could even melt the ground, not to mention that they could detonate themselves. If they weren't facing the Mist Soul Army, but any other army, these slimes would already have won this battle. In a way, the Mist Soul Army was the only force in this world that could defeat the Slime Army. No matter how many slimes they would face, these Mist Souls would strike back with no mercy. No flame, ice blast and explosion could do harm to them, so they could fight their way through the slime crowd easily. The slimes all dropped cores on the ground after they were killed by the mist souls. She controlled the mist to take the cores back and let the green slime bracelet on his arm absorb them. This was already the third area of the Island of Mist. On the first two areas, Yunshi and Yunkei had killed over 100,000 slimes and cleared out dozens of slime nests. However, this was just the beginning. As if they just opened a box that should never be opened, more and more slimes rushed to them from the mist with no signs of stopping. If it wasn't Yunshi's Mist Soul army, but the three high priestesses, they would have been overwhelmed by the endless slimes by now. I didn't expect that it'd be so tiring. Yunkei, breathing hard, put down the bow and adjusted her breath. Her hands were limp and painful at this moment. She needed to take a rest. How many slimes have Yunhai and I killed? Probably the number is already over 500,000. If converted their weight to humans' body weight, the number should be over 1,000,000. However, even after killing so many slimes, there are still more and more slimes gushing out of the mist. How many slimes are in the mist? How can it be possible? They shouldn't have obtained sufficient nutrients to proliferate. You don't need to push yourself. Compared to Yunkei, Yunshi was more leisurely. No, letting down of my guard will mean that I'm close to death. Yunkei shook her head. We are on the battlefield. Anything is possible and can happen on the battlefield. Maybe a strong monster will come and reverse the war situation. Before Yunkei finished her words, she suddenly noticed that Yunshi's body shook, with an emotion called fear in his eyes. You are right. She is coming. Yunshi's voice sounded nervous. For the first time, he looked really worried in front of Yunquebec. She? Who is she? Yunkei's instinct was as strong as Yunshi's. She hadn't noticed that the monster was approaching. I knew I would see her sooner or later, but, oh, as expected, she is in the Sky Swords camp. Yunshi took a deep breath, gazing at the sky. It's her. After a little while, Yunkei also noticed the small black point in the sky. Her pupils contracted. She would never forget this figure. She was defeated by this girl's sword, so she had to experience that nightmare again. Stepping on one translucent halo after another in the air, one of the strongest trump cards, Yunshi's childhood sweetheart, was rushing to them from the sky. A strand of hair was rotating on her head, as if it was a small detecting device that was being disturbed. With a violent rage, Yunshi's first love, Hua Hua, was rushing to them from the Sky Swords camp. P.S. Volume 1, from C1 to C62, and Volume 2, from C63 to C144, of Starchild Escapes Arranged Marriage. Chapter 250. I will protect you. Yunshi didn't know what his childhood sweetheart had encountered in this world. However, he knew that Hua Hua's fighting will was as bright and burning as the sun. When Hua Hua killed the male fiery dragon and fought against the twin witches, her power had shocked Yunshi. At this moment, Hua Hua's aura was even more terrible compared to that time. The translucent halos under her feet looked as if she had even trampled out cracks in the air. Her every step shook the sky heavily. It was a power that Yunshi hadn't touched, the true power of the sky flying sword. Are you scared? For the first time, Yunhai looked so uneasy in front of Yunquebec. Yes, she is dangerous. Yunshi softly touched the green slime bracelet on his arm. He wasn't afraid of Hua Hua's power. In fact, after obtaining the power of 1,000,000 brides, Yunshi's power was definitely stronger than Hua Hua's power. However, he couldn't do anything to her. He couldn't hurt her. She was his first love, the most wonderful and purest memory in his heart. For a long time, Yunshi thought that he would only love Hua Hua during his life. Even if he couldn't stay beside her forever, because she would undoubtedly become brighter and brighter, he wouldn't forget his love for Hua Hua. The time he spent together with Hua Hua was always happy and simple, and Yunshi often inadvertently forgot about the great gap between them. In the past, he had once imagined a day where he would marry Hua Hua, holding her hand at the wedding. Yunshi thought that Hua Hua also liked him. No, not like him as her lover, but liked him as her playmate. However, He believed that if he had enough time, he had confidence that she would fall in love with him. Unfortunately, Huahua wouldn't stay in that small town or even in the Sky Sword God's domain. Her talent was beyond what normal mortals could understand. No one would consider her as a common girl. She was like the bright queen of summer and the golden sun in the sky. In the meanwhile, she was like a common cloud in the air. The cloud could be beside the sun, but as the sun kept rising, they would eventually become separated from each other. Because Yunshi had understood this fact a long time ago, he could make his decision early. I love Huahua. I like the way she appears when she is running and brandishing her sword. I like her spirit of never regret and never retreat. In his eyes, she was the best lover in all the universe. However, he was just a common baker. He didn't deserve such a fantastic lover. The sun and the cloud can't stay together. The time that belonged to the two of them would be very short. Yunshi loved Huahua very much, so he knew when he should give up and leave her. As a mortal, he would become old, ill, and eventually die. They wouldn't have a future. To me, she is the last enemy that I can defeat. Yunshi sighed with a distressed look. Originally, they should have fought shoulder to shoulder in this world. The stars gave him a quest called The Girl Fights Against the Evil Dragon, which meant that he should have the chance to cooperate with her in this world. I understand. She is indeed a tough enemy for you. Yun-Kei thought that she knew what Yun-Hai was thinking. She had experienced Huahua's strong power personally. To Yun-Hai, who wasn't good at close combat, she was indeed tough. The Mist Soul Army was the strongest army Yun-Kei had ever known, but it also had a weak point, Yun-Shi, who wasn't used to controlling his new power. This wasn't an uncorrectable point, but to fix it, he needed time. Once Yun-Shi learned how to control his Mist Soul Army, it wouldn't be a weak point, but would become his strongest point. Having an army whose soldiers had no fear, wouldn't die, and were always faithful, it was a miracle that Yun-Kei had never imagined. She wouldn't let this miracle disappear. Don't worry, I will protect you. You won't die. Looking at the strong enemy coming from the sky, Yun-Kei said in a firm tone, in order to save this world, she must save Yun-Hai first, saving this man who could bring hope for this world. She had made many choices for victory, and her choice now was to protect the Emperor of the Mist Soul Army at all costs. Her Mist Soul in the Mist Soul Army was just an avatar. Compared to her avatar, her real power was much stronger. She had the only thing the White Emperor mask couldn't copy for her Mist Soul, because it was another water god's mask. Archer of Battlefield. Blood started to accelerate inside her body. Her mask was becoming more and more red, with bloody lines spread on it. Listen, watch my battle carefully. Maybe you still don't understand it, but the battle between strong people isn't as simple as you think. She could hear the thunderous sound from the sky. It was the sound made by Huahua's aura field. Huahua wasn't at the hero rank, but her power could make any hero-ranked being feel frightened. Because now in this manner, she was announcing her coming. Why? Why? Huahua ground her teeth. Anger, anger, anger. She didn't know the reason why, but she felt very angry. In front of her, there were two strangers. She didn't feel any familiarity from their appearances and auras, however. When she found that the two people were standing together, she felt very irritated. Little She, where are you? P.S. Volume 1, from C1 to C62, and Volume 2, from C63 to C144, of Starchild Escapes Arranged Marriage. Chapter 251. Landing. After arriving in this world, Huahua always felt that something was wrong. When they had just landed, Red Lotus, White Lotus, and Huahua had encountered the undead bone dragon, who was probably the most terrible monster in this world, and they had to fight against this annoying bone dragon. Finally, they got rid of the dragon and started to look for Yun-Shi, but they could find no clue. They had found all the other Sword Palace disciples and still didn't know where Yun-Shi was. Not only that, after coming to this world, her detection radar for rivals in love kept warning her. It was an instinct learned from a protracted struggle in her past life and had never made a false alarm. Due to this, She could find the girls who wickedly tried to take away her little she. However, isn't the warning too frequent these days? From ringing several times in a day to ringing dozens of times in a day, till now it kept warning her non-stop. It seemed as if her detection radar had broken. Just like when she looked at the girls formed by mist, they all showed as red points on her detection radar, which meant that they were all her rivals in love. Are you kidding me? It's an army. There are over 100,000 girls. In fact, 10 times more than that. Even if my little she became this world's emperor and had a big harem, he wouldn't have so many imperial concubines. Apart from this, when she looked at the two masked men in front of her, she felt distressed from the bottom of her heart. Why? Is it because the man on the left looks a bit like her little she? No, he can't be my little she. That man looks much older than Yun Shi, and my little she wouldn't be so leisurely if he was surrounded by a group of beautiful girls. She could notice that these mist girls often looked at this man with a soft look. Even when they were fighting, they still often stole a glance at him. But this man didn't notice this at all. Who is this dandy? What's his relationship with these strange mist girls? They are not some creations simply made by magics. They all have their special characters. After realizing this, Huahua bellowed out to this miracle. In her heart, perhaps only the power of God could produce such an army. No wonder that Shea Longness, the sky sword, cared for the water god so very much. The water god can't be simple. Perhaps it is much older and more mysterious than any of my guesses. However, it had nothing to do with Huahua. Huahua only cared about the red-masked man who was standing beside the silver-masked man. It's strange. Huahua thought that she had never seen this red-masked man before, but when she looked at him, she felt hostility toward him. No, it's not just hostility. It's anger. It's an unexpected rage that is even beyond her understanding. On Huahua's detection radar, this man's red point was bigger than any of the mist girls. This man's sense of existence was so strong that it even made Huahua's eyes twitch. Enemy, 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 danger, danger, danger. Huahua could feel the uneasiness in her heart. It was a warning from her bloodline. She probably had met the most terrible rival in her life. No, I can't take it any longer. Let me beat him down first. Although there was no reason to explain her hostility, Huahua still decided to believe her instinct. If I can't figure it out, let me beat him down first, then think about it again. Huahua's heavy sword should, emitting a sound that could shake the heaven and the earth. Instantly, Huahua had locked onto Yun Quebec. For a moment, they gazed at each other. You're my enemy. Huahua exclaimed her feelings with no disguise. I will protect him. For this world, even though Yun K still thought that Yun Hai was a scumbag, she wouldn't hesitate to protect him. Take this. Huahua held the heavy sword tightly. The heavy sword suddenly became blurred in her hands. Forestall. Yun K drew the black longbow. This artifact name, Black Moon, immediately emitted a frightening aura. Compared to the time when she tried to assassinate Huahua, she had become much stronger, and her arrows was much more powerful and fatal. 16 blood lights of arrow formed from her fingers when he drew the black longbow fully. The bowstring quivered, emitting an aura that wasn't inferior to Huahua's sword at all. In the Mist Soul army, Yun Kei's dark elf Mist Soul suddenly raised her head and looked at Huahua. She suddenly disappeared in the air. For victory, I can become unscrupulous. From the beginning, she wasn't planning to have a one-on-one fight. After all, she wasn't a saber but an archer. 16 burning spiral arrows shot to Huahua from all directions. Even if you were the sun, I will shoot you down from the sky. Even if you were a star, I will break you up with my sword. Two girls, two different wills, but their minds were both unshakable. Yunshi sighed after realizing this. How excellent are these two people. Even though their characters are different, they are similar in some sense. Boom, boom, boom. 16 explosions echoed between the sky and the earth. The fierce blast wave even caused a huge mushroom cloud in the air. The shock waves even spread to the sea, where it was 10 kilometers away. It was an impact between two hero-ranked powers. It was a symphony of two strong souls. Curse you! Hua Hua heavily dropped from the sky to the battlefield like a meteorite, embracing her sky-flying bloodline's absolute power. P.S. Volume 1, from C1 to C62, and Volume 2, from C63 to C144, of Starchild Escapes Arranged Marriage. Chapter 252. The Crimson Hound. The earth was shaking. Countless cracks spread around from Hua Hua's landing place like spider webs, and the strong shock wave killed over 10,000 mist souls at once. Of course, the mist souls were deathless as long as Yuanxi was still wearing the White Emperor mask. No matter how powerful the shock wave was, it would be meaningless eventually. It's neither painful nor disturbing to lose 10,000 mist souls. Soon after, these mist souls had returned to the battlefield from the mist door behind Yuanxi. Hua Hua frowned as she looked at these suspect rivals in love. She had noticed that these mist girls wouldn't die when she was in the sky. However, she still thought that it was a foul to return from the mist door as if nothing had happened. The undead army had over 100,000 mist girls. It could even straightly destroy a kingdom as easy as blowing off dust. It seemed that the water god's camp had also sent their strong combat power, the so-called apostles. It doesn't matter. She was never afraid of battle. No matter who her enemy was, her sky-flying bloodline wouldn't lose. Even if there was an army of 100,000 people, or even 200,000 people, she only needed to beat down their leader. Without their emperor, the army would be just a puddle of water. I can take any enemy's head from the protection of an army. Any hero-ranked being had the confidence to announce this. However, the hero rank didn't mean infinite physical strength and combat capability. Theoretically, a hero-ranked person was possible to be killed by a strong mortal army. However, it was just a theory. No mortal army could trap any hero-ranked beings. The hero-ranked being didn't need to fight recklessly with the army. As long as the hero-ranked being decapitated the army's commander, the army wouldn't be a threat any longer. Hua Hua knew what she should do exactly. Yunkei also knew what she should do at this moment. Only a hero-ranked being could defeat another hero-ranked being. Who? Hua Hua breathed. It was a breathing method she had never seen. Like a dragon was breathing, a circle of terrible aura surrounded Hua Hua's body. Compared to her, the hero-ranked male fiery dragon's dragon aura was nothing. Suddenly, the ground under Hua Hua's feet exploded. Holding the heavy sword in her hands, Hua Hua used the skill called Sky Flying Sword. She stepped forward with a circle of translucent halo after another circle spread around under her feet. Compared to her attack from the sky, Hua Hua was more unstoppable on the ground. With crushing force, her every step increased the frightening force of the translucent halos. Most mist souls immediately evaporated when they touched the halos. Only a very few strong mist souls still stood in front of Hua Hua and tried to stop her. They had no fear in their eyes, not to mention no thought of stepping back. Even if they could only slightly slow down Hua Hua's speed, they wouldn't hesitate to achieve it even with their real flesh and blood. Yuanxi looked at the redoubtable figure, realizing his childhood sweetheart's strong power again. She wasn't the Hua Hua that he knew when she was in the small town. At this moment, she was an invincible swordsman. If he hadn't obtained the power from the stars, he probably would never see his childhood sweetheart's other face. Even though he had obtained the stars' power, he still hadn't caught up with his childhood sweetheart's pace. Even though he was wearing the White Emperor mask, its power couldn't be a match for Hua Hua's bloodline power. At this moment, Hua Hua looks so beautiful. How dare you? In the face of Hua Hua's assault, Yunkei decided to bring in the whole Mist Soul army to stop her. At the same time, her left foot pressed forward and her right foot firmly nailed to the ground. She drew open the black longbow like a full moon. A bloody arrow suddenly appeared on the bowstring with a frightening aura. Compared to the gorgeous red lotus arrows and the spiral arrows, this arrow didn't pursue to be accurate, but was much more powerful. Boom! The sound of the bowstring shaking echoed in the sky above the Mist Soul army. It was a limit arrow with all Yunkei's energy. After shooting this arrow, she had no strength to protect herself. Ding! Hua Hua brandished her heavy sword. A fierce hound-like light exploded on the sword blade. It was Yun Kei's arrow, the arrow of bloodthirsty demon hound. Although Yun Kei wasn't beloved by this world, she had also obtained the water god's mask. With it, she had developed her own way of activating her bloodline power. She wasn't the emperor that was beloved by the god, and she didn't want to be the princess. She put on her own crown of blood and sin. The bloody arrow of bloodthirsty demon hound was the materialization of her strong will. Once she shot the arrow, it would keep hunting its enemy till either it killed its target or was smashed to pieces. The roaring crimson demon hound was her weapon she used to snipe her enemy. I can kill anything, even if that thing is God. Go ahead, my arrow of bloodthirsty demon hound. As the demon hound roared, the two girls who had different fates started their earth-shaking duel again. Chapter 253. Continuous attacks. Hua Hua broke the first, the second, the third arrow of bloodthirsty demon hound like breaking some dead branches from a tree. These arrows could even destroy a mountain, but caused no harm to Hua Hua. However, Hua Hua's speed was indeed being slowed down, which made Yun Shi look at Yun Kei in a new light. Yun Kei could stop Hua Hua's assault with such fierce attacks. He was definitely the strongest archer Yun Shi had ever seen. I'm not the only person who has learned something from this trial, Yun Shi thought in his heart. Suddenly, the dark elf Miss Soul, who disappeared on the battlefield before, turned into a dark shadow and appeared behind Hua Hua. Her black sword pointed at Hua Hua's back. Yun Shi hadn't seen how she had moved so stealthily behind Hua Hua. Obviously, she could eliminate her existence from Hua Hua's senses, which should be a special ability from her dark elf bloodline. Finally, Hua Hua was forced to stop. The two hero-ranked enemies' attacks were so tacit, which even surprised Hua Hua. After she broke the fourth arrow of bloodthirsty demon hound, her body stiffened for less than 1/10 of a second. Seizing this perfect opportunity, the assassin behind her launched her attack. Hua Hua raised the heavy sword and smashed it into the ground. A silver sphere appeared and wrapped around Hua Hua's body, then exploded in the air. Countless lights gushed out and spread around Hua Hua, forcing the dark elf to step back and blew her into the sky. Power. It is the most direct, purest violent power. Maybe it was because no one could force Hua Hua to use her true power in the past, or that she could naturally master any weapon. At this moment, Hua Hua looked so different compared to her memories in Yun Shi's heart. When she used the long sword, she was a nimble female swordsman. When she used the heavy sword, she was an invincible god of war. However, no matter which side she showed, she was still the Hua Hua Yun Shi loved. The more time he stayed beside Hua Hua, the more charms he could see in her. If possible, he could look at her all day. Suddenly, after being blown up into the sky, the dark elf's body divided in the air. One dark shadow, two, three dark shadows. Three avatars appeared. The dark elf chose sword. Compared to Yun Kei, who was good at archery, her tactic was totally different. She would pay anything for victory. This was Yun Kei's belief and the root of all her tactics. Therefore, she needed to learn all kinds of tactics so that she could adapt herself to all battlefield environments. Archer was her main career. Assassination, reconnaissance, and independent action were the best tactical formation for her. However, she was also good at sword. An archer who doesn't know close combat isn't a good archer. Because she could adapt herself to all complex situations, she could announce that she was a perfect archer. When she used the bow, she was a super sniper who could launch an attack from over the horizon. When she used the sword, she was a dark elf shadow dancer who could use her dark elf bloodline and her dark elf's swordplay smartly. At the first, she couldn't use her two abilities together, which meant that once she used the bow, she couldn't use the sword at the same time, and vice versa. However, Yun Shi's Mist Soul army helped her perfectly solve this problem in an inconceivable manner. Her dark elf Mist Soul inherited her swordplay technique. Maybe it had something to do with her condition when she signed the contract with Yun Shi. When she fought together with her Mist Soul, She could feel the perfect tacit understanding between them. As the commander of the Mist Soul Army, the Dark Elf could understand all her intentions and found suitable opportunities to support her. She didn't decide to stop Hua Hua with her continuous attacks suddenly, but had made this tactic from the beginning when Hua Hua was still in the sky. Yun Kei didn't believe in instinct and luck. She believed that all things in this world needed to follow some certain rules. As long as she could find and understand the rules, she would be able to defeat all enemies. She preferred to rely on her thoroughly tempered combat capability rather than to trust on her combat instinct, and this was how her two special abilities built. Special Ability 1, Eagle's Eye, which was also called Clairvoyance. She could lock on her enemy from 4 kilometers away with her longbow. Special Ability 2, Mind's Eye, a kind of insight she learned from strenuous practice. With it, she could analyze the battlefield situation calmly among disadvantages and found all advantages for victory. As a Phantom Archer, she learned many special abilities based on the 2 core abilities, such as Independent Action, Master Sniper, Spiral Arrow, Double Arrow, Tracing Arrow, and Red Lotus Arrow. As a Dark Elf, her Dark Elf bloodline conferred her a lot of innate abilities such as Shadow Stealth, Multiple Avatars, and Air Interdiction. She would never rely her fate on luck, which was impossible to calculate. Only a perfect calculation and plan could bring her victory. If she found that she couldn't win a battle, she would retreat and wait for her enemy's negligence. Unfortunately, she couldn't retreat on this battlefield. They had only one choice after stepping on the Island of Mist. As the Water God's apostles, she and he had obtained the whole world's support. They must win. They must defeat all enemies before Shea Longness, the Sky Sword, actually descends into this world. P.S. Volume 1, from C1 to C62, and Volume 2, from C63 to C144, of Starchild Escapes Arranged Marriage. Chapter 254. The sword is broken, I must win. Only the people who live in peace would say, I want to enjoy the battle and don't mind the end result. On a real battlefield, victory could only be bought by unscrupulous tactics and a great amount of sacrifice. It wasn't surprising to know that a battle's result could be determined by an insignificant detail. Therefore, the less mistakes she made, the more likely she would be able to win the battle. No pain, no gain. It was an immortal rule for both the mortal and hero-ranked beings. With this belief in her heart, so that she was able to get to this point, Yun Kei's hands were already stained with blood. She could snipe her enemies from kilometers away and could also assassinate her target in the shadows. If necessary, she could also pretend to be an ordinary person to take action. Everything was for victory. 7 shadow avatars surrounded Hua Hua, and they all had the same aura like Yun Kei's. It wasn't her Mist Soul's property, but an instinctive ability from her Dark Elf bloodline. All Dark Elves could control the Dark Shadow power naturally. Yun Kei's special innate ability was to divide several avatars of herself and switch her true body amongst her avatars. Her avatars were bogus, but also real. The boundary between reality and counterfeit was blurred at this point. She had mastered it a long time ago, but only after she reached the hero rank, she could actually use this innate ability properly. Jie. In Yun Kei's hand, the longbow's bowstring quivered. She just shot the 5th arrow. Wind speed, moving path, and all the things on the battlefield had turned into data streams, flowing into Yun Kei's eyes. She had performed her mind's eye to the limit. She didn't rely on her instinct but followed her hard calculations, forcing Hua Hua to enter her trap. It wasn't assassination. It was an undisguised assault. She used her complex calculations and her eagle's eye to observe the situation, then used her mind's eye to find out her enemy's weak point. This was her core strategy, which was based on her 3 abilities. In order to support the great amount of calculations, she had almost overloaded her brain. A drop of blood dripped down from the corner of her eyes, which represented that she had used the power in her water god's mask to the limit. Bang! It didn't sound like an arrow, but sounded like a cannonball exploding. Yun Kei shot her strongest arrow. Hua Hua raised the heavy sword to block this attack. With a deafening sound, she was forced to take a step back. Pang! With another loud sound, Hua took 2 steps back. The heavy sword emitted a plaintive whine in her hands. It was due to the qualitative gap between their weapons. Yun-Kei knew that her strength and explosive force were inferior to Hua's, then her best advantage was her weapons. Hua's weapon wasn't a god weapon, nor even a spirit weapon. It was just a hard 2-handed heavy sword. Yun-Kei had the water god's mask, which was undoubtedly a god weapon, and her Black Moon sword and Black Moon bow were all artifacts. Therefore, her weapons were far better than Hua's. If Hua's heavy sword was an artifact, Yun-Kei wouldn't fight so recklessly with her. She would order the whole Mist Soul Army to stop Hua and retreat together with Yun-Shi. Of course, if it really happened, it wouldn't be escape. It would just be a strategic shift. After all, the way to win battle was to exert advantages and dig out the opponent's disadvantages. Since Yun-Kei had known that her weapons were better, then she would naturally exert all she had for this advantage. Her Black Moon bow and her Dark Elf Mist Soul's Black Moon sword were the 2 weights that could change the balance of power on the battlefield. Shuffle. When Hua took the 3rd step back, her balance was slightly shaken. Seizing this opportunity, the 7 Dark Shadow avatars moved. They attacked Hua from 7 different directions. After blocking Yun-Kei's arrow of bloodthirsty demon hounds several times, there were already several noticeable cracks appearing on Hua's heavy sword. Although it was a fully refined weapon, the heavy sword was still a mortal-ranked weapon. With its huge size and weight, Hua could defeat common hero-ranked enemies, but it finally exposed its fatal defect under Yun-Kei's attacks. Ding, ding, ding. Within a second, the Dark Elf's Black Moon sword had cut on the heavy sword over 100 times as its attacks were all focusing on the cracks on the sword blade. Yun-Kei's tactic was so relentless and ruthless. Once she found her enemy's weak point, she would attack that weak point with all her strength. Finally, in the Dark Elf's 3rd round of attack, Hua's sword was broken. The heavy sword blade was divided into 2 pieces. The huge sword tip dropped to the ground with a heavy thud. Gee! Yun-Shi looked at Yun-Kei in surprise. For the first time, he saw that Hua was backed into such a disadvantageous corner. When Yun-Kei saw the heavy sword breaking, even though she was always calm, she still couldn't help but show a proud smile on her face. The turning point of the battle had appeared. Not bad. There were flames burning inside Hua's eyes. Even the Bone Dragon didn't achieve such an achievement. She was fired up. She had to admit that when it referred to control power and degree of accuracy, the brainless Bone Dragon was far inferior to this archer in red. Till now, the strongest archer she had met was the mysterious assassin in the Sword Palace entrance exam. However, this archer in red was far stronger and more aggressive. Do you think you have one? I will let you realize your mistake, because what is broken can be reforged. Reforge my sword. Hua held the broken sword and put her finger on the sword blade. Instantly, her blood flowed out from the wound on her finger and spread along the broken blade. After staining with Hua's blood, a fantastic change was happening to the sword. Originally, it was just a heavy, thick mortal weapon, but now, it was transforming in a frightening direction. 1, 2, 3. 3 bloodstains appeared on the broken blade. Bloody sharp edges spread out of the broken blade, making the broken sword look more mysterious and terrifying. What? Holding the Black Moon bow, Yun-Kei's hand was shaking. What is happening? What has she done to the broken sword? When Hua put her blood on the broken sword, the sword could only absorb a small part of the energy in her blood, and most energy returned into her body naturally. Compared to Hua's bloodline, Yun-Kei felt like her Dark Elf bloodline was totally worthless. Don't disappoint me, because I'm already fired up. To Hua, this was the first time she used this secret skill. Her tone sounded excited. When she had been in the small town, no one could force her to use this secret skill. Even the undead bone dragon on the island of Mist wasn't strong enough to let her use it, because it was too brainless. This archer in red was the strongest enemy Hua had ever met after leaving the small town. Just now, Huahua's every move and plan of attack had all been predicted by the archer in red, which was undoubtedly a rare experience for her. Therefore, Huahua thought that it was time to show off what she had learned. My sky-flying bloodline doesn't have any weak points. Even though I have only a broken sword in my hand, I can make it an artifact. Of course, the effect of her blood was temporary. The energy from her blood would fade away and the sword would break again at a later time. However, Huahua had the confidence to defeat the enemies before that happened. Shuffle. Yunkei raised her eyebrows, but wasn't being provoked. Compared to Huahua, who enjoyed a peaceful life in the small town when she was young, Yunkei's childhood was much poorer and bloodier. Her experience in the past had taught her that calm was the only path that could lead her to victory. Fear and anxiety would interfere with her choice. At that moment, she imaged that her body was the purest and most perfect weapon. Steel is my body, and fire is my blood. I have gone through over 1,000 battlefields and have never been defeated. I will abandon all emotions and put all my heart into the battle. Calculate the enemy's information again. The advantages and disadvantages, the environment of the battlefield, the things I can use. My win rate isn't 0. I still have an advantage over her because I'm not fighting alone. This is a battlefield, not an arena, and I'm not taking part in a duel of one-on-one. On the battlefield, only the person who is still alive can become the winner. Change of tactic. Yunhai, let's fight together, Yunkei said as she drew her black longbow again. Oh, I see. She took a deep breath. He had never thought that he would fight against Huahua one day. However, that is how life goes on. What are you whispering about? Huahua was in a bad mood. She didn't know why she felt irritable when she saw the two people whispering shoulder to shoulder. A strand of hair raised on her head and pointed at the two people's direction, as if it was warning its master that something bad was happening. Compared to Yunkei, Huahua's battle plan was much simpler and cruder. I will crush all enemies in front of me. I don't care about their races or identities, because my sky-flying bloodline can defeat anyone in front of me. She had never doubted her power, because she was really strong. She didn't enter the hero rank because she had undone a restriction in her body. Her true fighting capability wasn't something that could be explained with common sense. The stronger her enemy was, the stronger she would become. Her fighting capability could be enhanced faster than anybody's imagination when she was in a fight. Chapter 256. The White Emperor's Power Compared to Yunkei. She really knew how strong his childhood sweetheart was. Even though he had obtained Huahua's seed, he had never seen Huahua in such high spirits. Her heavy sword had broken, but after reforging it, its aura had become much more frightening. It looked as if she had been fired up. The flames of her soul were so bright. Even her breath was so hot it was burning. Even though Huahua was still a few kilometers away from them, Yunshi and Yunkei could still feel their bodies break out with goose flesh. This was how strong Yunshi's childhood sweetheart, Huahua, was. Yunshi took a deep breath. Naturally, he wouldn't use sword skills like the flying swallow sword in front of Huahua, which would undoubtedly expose his true identity. Similarly, he couldn't use any of the weapons he had used in front of Huahua, neither the Crane Wings twin swords nor the Killing Princess demon sword. However, if he couldn't use his sword, how could he fight against Huahua? The answer was obvious. He could only use the power he obtained in this world, the power from 1,000,000 brides, the strong fake power of the Emperor. Why had he come to this world? Why did he have to fight against his first love? For saving this world. For the girls who believed in him and were willing to become a part of his brides. The girls of the Starwing Knights, the 3 water gods' high priestesses, the 1,000,000 girls who came to the Celian city and responded to his irrational request. They all trusted him and lent their power to him, making him the real White Emperor. While he was here, he gradually came to like this world and the local residents. He wasn't just following the water gods' quests, but actually wanted to do something to help this world. The tenderness this world had offered him had changed him. Like what the 3 high priestesses had said, I'm responsible for this world. Therefore, I must bring hope to them. Since I'm the last hope to save this world, then I will change this world's fate with my own hands. Since this world is longing for reform, then I will bring new changes for them. Countless mist gathered together behind Yuan-shi from all directions, forming a giant mist door. One ice blade after another emerged from the mist door. They were the mist souls who responded to Yuan-shi's will and transformed into weapons. It was Yuan-shi's unique mist soul armory. Fire. Ice blades. If Yun-Kei's attack was a precise, deadly blow, then Yuan-shi's attack was a long-range bombardment. Only with the support from the 1,000,000 brides, Yuan-shi could make such a splendid attack. He admitted that his control over his power was inferior to Yun-Kei's, however. With the Mist Soul's help, the amount of his attack could be thousands of times stronger than Yun-Kei's. Tens of thousands of cold ice blades shot at Huahua from Yuan-shi's back like a storm. I can't lock on the target? It doesn't matter, because I can offset this weak point with attack range and frequency. If anyone wanted to defeat Yuan-shi, it would also mean having to defeat his 1,000,000 brides at the same time. What? Even Huahua hadn't seen such a reckless, exaggerated attack. At first glance, they were just some newbies' imprudent attacks because the speed and direction of all the ice blades weren't very perfect. However, there were tens of thousands of ice blades, which made his weaknesses not a weakness any longer. The overwhelming number had offset all weaknesses, which was really surprising to know that they were made by a human. Huahua couldn't imagine any hero-ranked being that could have such a great amount of power like Yuan-shi. If a mortal's power was like a stream and a hero-ranked person's power was like a river, then the amount of Yuan-shi's power was like an ocean, was totally beyond the limit of the hero rank. This was Yuan-shi's special property as this world's White Emperor. The White Emperor would never be alone. He was an army of one. He was the Mist Soul Army. The Mist Soul Army was a part of him, and he was also an avatar of the Mist Soul Army. At this hour, he had just learned how to release the true power of the Mist Soul Army. Then he showed a frightening power which was even stronger than Huahua's. Yes, this is it. You are strong. You are stronger than my greatest expectation and imagination. Yun-Kei knew it better than anyone. She had known that this scumbag was the strongest being in this world since a long time ago. After all, he had 1,000,000 brides' power. Even if your enemy is strong, you don't need to worry about anyone as long as you can release your true power. Don't worry, I won't let any enemy get close to you. I will protect you at all costs, because you are the unique emperor. Yun-shi sighed. I have to fight against my childhood sweetheart. Is this my fate after putting on the White Emperor mask? I understand. After all, it's a battle of my own choosing. Chapter 257. Fierce Fighting. Ding, ding, ding. Transparent ice blades had covered half of the battlefield as more and more ice blades kept shooting out of the mist door behind Yun-shi. Huahua brandished the reforged broken sword, blocking all the ice blades easily. Countless ice fragments exploded on the battlefield, creating a freezing field with an extremely cold temperature. Bang! Every time when Huahua blocked the ice blades, which also meant that she couldn't block other attacks at the same time. Yun-Kei would always shoot an arrow of bloodthirsty demon hound to her. At the same time, her mist soul would also appear beside Huahua and launch an assassination attack. Danger! 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 For the first time, Huahua's attack was suppressed. If it wasn't because the broken sword could emit a devastating light beam at the critical moment, Huahua probably couldn't hold on 1 minute. The person who caused her dilemma was Yun-shi. He had to attack his childhood sweetheart for victory. Based on his understanding about Huahua, and with the help of his White Emperor mask, Yun-shi chose the best tactic to stop Huahua. He had Huahua's seed in his body. Naturally, he understood that once Huahua got close to him, the battle would be finished. Him and Yun-Kei couldn't win against Huahua in close combat. Once Huahua used her true power, even if they were as strong as a dragon, they would still be killed by her in one hit. Therefore, they must stop Huahua to dictate the tempo of the battle. It was impossible to win against Huahua with a sword. In Yun-shi's mind, the only sword skill that was a match for Huahua's sky-flying sword was Yun-Hai's Sword Master sword skill, Yun-Hai's Quadrant Sword. Only a godlike sword skill can compete with another godlike sword skill. However, Yuanshi hadn't learned Yuanhai's quadrant skill. Therefore, the tactic he used now was the only method that he could use to defeat Hua Hua. He would cooperate with Yunkei, stopping Hua Hua approaching him, so that she wouldn't have any chance to use her sword skill. His incredible energy from the 1,000,000 brides was the only way to beat back Hua Hua from a distance. Therefore, he opened the mist door and let the ice blades fly. Ding, ding, ding. No matter how many ice blades Hua Hua had broken, there would always be more and more ice blades shooting at her. Undoubtedly, Yuanshi had the strongest range attack ability in the entire water god's world. In Yunkei's eyes, Yuanshi's behavior was like throwing a mountainous counterweight on the balance of this battle. For the first time, Yunkei saw the light of winning this battle. It was also the first experience to Hua Hua to be forced into a disadvantage. It was quite incredible since she could always beat down her enemies with great ease. In Hua Hua's heart, this silver-masked man was the first person who had the same great talent like her. However, why don't I feel hostility from him? Why? We are enemies. We should fight at full tilt, but why can't I feel killing intention from his attacks? Compared to him, the archer in red was more competent. I can feel his sharp, undisguised killing intent coming from the bottom of his heart. Are you looking down on me? Do you think I don't deserve your full attack? A strange smile appeared on the corner of Hua Hua's mouth. I had never thought that I would be shown mercy by my enemy someday. I'm underestimated. Little she, if you know it, will you laugh at me? It looks like I should be more serious. No, too bad. Looking at Hua Hua's eyes, Yuanshi immediately realized that something was wrong. Hua Hua rarely showed such a smile on her face. She was a sunny girl and was always friendly to everyone. In Yuanshi's memory, she only showed such a smile a few times when she was extremely angry. The most vivid memory in Yuanshi's mind was when his sword skill teacher tried to teach him something in her room. Hua Hua suddenly broke into the room. At that time, she showed a similar smile on her face. Holding the broken sword, which was covered with bloody lights now, Hua Hua moved a step forward. Boom! Bright lights exploded from the broken sword and formed a round of blood-colored shield around her body. Yuanshi's ice blades hit on the shield and exploded, but caused no damage to the shield. She is coming. Yunkei looked at Hua Hua through her water god's mask. In her eyes, Hua Hua's aura was like a giant light column, connecting heaven and earth. 1. Hua Hua took a step forward, striding over 100 meters. It wasn't like the quicksilver motion Yuanshi had learned. Hua Hua wasn't simply increasing her speed, but actually strode over 100 meters in a step. Stop Hua Hua by using range attacks. Yuanshi's tactic wasn't wrong, but was too naive. Sky-flying sword meant the will of hovering in the sky freely. It was impossible for the ice blades to stop Hua Hua. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. Yunkei marked Hua Hua's path in her vision. After all, Hua Hua wasn't trying to hide her intention at all. She was going in a straight line, the simplest route, and at the destination of her route, it was the core of the Mist Soul Army, their emperor, Yuanshi. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. Yunkei shot 16 arrows. Since she had known Hua Hua's route, it wasn't possible for the arrows to miss. 2. Hua Hua didn't even look at the 16 arrows and let them explode on the blood-colored shield. She walked the second step toward Yuanshi with a determined look. Compared to the first step, the second step crossed a longer distance, and the transparent halo under her feet was bigger. Accelerating, accelerating, accelerating. It was a sword skill Yuanshi didn't know and couldn't understand. Even as Hua Hua was surrounded by an army of 1,000,000, she still looked as if she was walking in the backyard of her house. In front of her sky-flying sword, all beings are equal. Once she used the sky-flying sword, she would never retreat. I didn't imagine that it was possible. Yunkei ground her teeth. Her body suddenly emitted a similar aura like Hua Hua, because she had used the secret skill from her water god's mask, multiple competences enhancing. P.S. Volume 1, from C1 to C62, and Volume 2, from C63 to C144, of Starchild Escape's Arranged Marriage. Chapter 258. At the end of fantasy, Yun Kei's blood flowed in her body like surging wind waves. Unlike Yun Shi, her water god's mask could only let her control her blood, but it didn't mean she was weak. Life itself contained the strongest potential. Even if the most common people could burst with incredible strength when they were facing a life-or-death crisis or their emotions were stimulated. Such as, in order to save her child from a fallen house, a mother could lift a stone that was several times heavier than her body weight. Or, when a man is chased by a beast, his speed could be beyond human physical limits. In the final analysis, they just dug out their final potential so that they could do that. However, mortals couldn't control this power. The people who temporarily obtained this power all died of heart failure after breaking out of the crisis. They were overdrawing their life force and releasing it all at one instant. No pain, no gain. This is an immutable rule of the universe. Yun Kei's multiple competences enhancing could increase her speed, strength, and explosive force, greatly raising her fighting capacity in an instant. An ordinary person's heart rate was 60 beats per minute. However, Yun Kei's heart rate had increased to 200 beats per minute and was still rising. Not enough. Be faster. Even though the water god's mask could automatically adjust her physiological state, her face still turned red due to her fast and strong heartbeat. Bang, bang, bang. As the blood flowing in her vessels, Yun Kei's heartbeat was becoming louder and clearer. The heart was the core of a human body. Naturally, her heart rate was so fast that her blood would also flow at a high speed. Yun Kei's visual field was gradually covered by red color. Her eyes had become bloodshot. 3. Hua took the third step. Her speed and impact force were becoming stronger and stronger as her footsteps echoed between the sky and the heaven. Whatever it was, Yun Shi's ice blade, Yun Kei's trace arrow, or the dark elf Mist Soul's multiple assassination, none of them could stop Hua from stepping forward. Since my demon hound can't stop you, I will stop you with my own blood. Yun Kei put her fingertip on the bowstring. Just like Hua used her blood to make her broken sword become an artifact, Yun Kei's blood wasn't as strong as hers, but it could also enhance her Black Moon Bow. This was the only thing Yun Kei could do that her Mist Soul couldn't do, because her Mist Soul didn't have blood in her body. Staining with Yun Kei's blood, the Black Moon Bow emitted a bright, florid light. An arrow formed by blood automatically appeared on the bowstring and loaded on the Black Moon Bow, Yun Kei's artifact. This time, it wasn't a fierce demon hound but was a strange hummingbird with blood-red wings. The hummingbird couldn't lock on its target automatically, but its penetrating force had been greatly reinforced to the limit that Yun Kei could reach. This was the second demon arrow Yun Kei had learned, the arrow of blood hummingbird, focusing all attack forces on one point. The hummingbird's blood-red wings could increase its speed to an incredible degree in the blink of an eye. Buzz. The arrow of blood hummingbird's attacking trajectory was instantly fixed on one point. Because it had abandoned all other properties and only focused on increasing its penetrating force, its trajectory couldn't be changed after being shot. The arrow's trajectory was overlapped with Hua's moving trace. The arrow was directly locking on Hua's heart. Chi. Unlike the arrow of bloodthirsty demon hound, the arrow of blood hummingbird only made an imperceptible sound when it left the bow. A bloodline flashed through the space between Yun Shi and Hua. Hua was still moving ahead, however. Her speed reduced for a moment. At that moment, Yun Kei's arrow of blood hummingbird directly pierced through Hua's blood-colored shield. Unfortunately, the arrow still couldn't stop Hua. After piercing through the shield, it was immediately blown away by Hua's sword. Yun Kei could clearly see that the arrow's speed was greatly reduced after piercing through the shield. No, its speed is still not enough. To ordinary hero-ranked people, this arrow could take away their lives in an instant, but to Hua, it could only cause her a bit of trouble. There was a wide gap between their powers. I can't win against her one-on-one. Fortunately, I'm not fighting alone. Do whatever you can to slow down her speed. Otherwise, we both will die here, Yun Kei said as she sacrificed her blood again. This time, she put 3 arrows of blood hummingbird on the Black Moon Bow. Even though she could control her blood wasn't infinite. If they couldn't defeat Huahua before her blood drained, they would all be killed. I know. Yunshi's eyes were covered with a layer of mist. He had gradually learned how to use his white emperor mask on the battlefield. As expected, only a real, tough battle can force myself to break through and let me use my real potential. Fighting against his childhood sweetheart was stressful enough to Yunshi. He must think over and over again, trying his best to find out his invincible childhood sweetheart's weakness. The plan of stopping her in a distance by using ice blades had failed. It looked as if Huahua didn't have any weakness. She was a perfect female swordsman, a weapon master who wouldn't be bound by any existing tactic. Both of the sky and the earth were her battle. Schemes and intrigues were meaningless in front of her. Only the power at the same level with Huahua's can stop her. Do I have that power? I have that power. I can turn my imagination into reality. I can create anything with the infinite mist. Since I have obtained such an unreal power, then I shouldn't be bound by my common sense. Yunshi slowly closed his eyes. One by one, countless ice crystals emerged out of the mist door behind him. P.S. Volume 1, from C1 to C62, and Volume 2, from C63 to C144, of Starchild Escape's Arranged Marriage. Chapter 259. Crafting Mode. Imagine myself as the most powerful, with the 1,000,000 brides' hope and power behind me. Imagine what my existence as the White Emperor should be. With the endless power of Mist, Black Moon, the Lamia Queen, the Mermaid Queen, the Celian Queen's help, to what extent can I reach? I won't be bound by my common sense. I can do everything, turning the impossible dream into reality. In this world, I'm unique and the most powerful person. I'm the White Emperor. Huahua was the strongest swordsman Yunshi had ever known. Therefore, if he wanted to win against Huahua, he had to become the perfect White Emperor. I have the blessings from my 1,000,000 brides. Yunshi slowly raised his head and opened his eyes. Under the silver mask, there were countless swirls of mist inside his eyes. My girls believe in me, so I believe in them too. If this is my fate, then I won't escape from it. For my 1,000,000 brides are forging the strongest shield for me. Hundreds of millions of silver ice crystals flew out of the mist door behind Yunshi. It was the miracle formed by the 1,000,000 brides' will, a power that could turn anything into reality. Without warning, a crystal diamond wall suddenly appeared in front of Huahua and blocked her way. The center of the diamond wall was incredibly thick and the ice around it was still proliferating. Diamond Wall was the strongest fortress that could absorb the strongest brunt. Responding to Yunshi's hope, the will of his 1,000,000 brides naturally formed this ice fortress for him. Moreover, it wasn't a single ice wall. More and more ice walls appeared and interconnected together at an incredible speed. They were forming a castle. Huahua used her sky-flying bloodline to reforge her broken sword, an artifact. Yunshi summoned his 1,000,000 brides' power, forming an eternal ice castle. Arguably, due to Huahua's enormous pressure, Yunshi was forced to forget his common sense and really understand how to control his 1,000,000 brides' power. The Mist Soul Army wasn't just an army. Amongst the 1,000,000 brides, there were incomparable singers, excellent artisans, talented weapons makers, and proficient floriculturists. 1,000,000 brides meant millions of possibilities. They comprised almost all of the careers in the water god's world. At this moment, Yunshi was using the crafting mode, which was a miracle that even Huahua couldn't obtain. The ice blades were what Yunshi's brides had formed for him. After realizing that the ice blades couldn't stop Huahua, Yunshi changed his tactic. The ice fortress wasn't like the endless ice blades. It couldn't attack, but it was the strongest shield Yunshi and his 1,000,000 brides could imagine. What? Yun-Kei was shocked. Yun-Hai had learned how to use his 1,000,000 brides' power? Undoubtedly, the ice fortress is a strategic weapon. As expected, he is this world's hope. Boom! Huahua bumped into the first ice wall. Instantly, countless cracks appeared on the 10 meters tall wall, and just after a few seconds, the ice wall had collapsed. However, there were still dozens of ice walls in front of Hua, and they were still becoming thicker and firmer. After entering the crafting mode, Yunshi could create anything that existed in his mind. At the same time, the experiences from his million brides also helped him modify his imagination so that his desires could come true without breaking the rules of this world. Just like Hua was unmatched impacting force, Yunshi's creative power was also infinite. This wasn't a one-on-one fight. It was a fight of a million against one. Boom, boom, boom. After being covered by the blood-colored shield, Hua was still moving forward, but her impacting force wasn't invincible in front of Yunshi's ice fortress. What a fantastic power! I had never imagined such a tactic. Yun-Kei held the Black Moon bow and waited for a suitable opportunity. Hua looked annoyed by being blocked by the endless ice walls. What the hell is this? The enemy summoned an ice castle to stop me? He's too cunning. He must be cheating. Because I'm not fighting alone. Yunshi reinforced the ice castle and calculated Hua's speed. For the first time, Yunshi suppressed his childhood sweetheart with his wisdom and imagination. As a swordsman, Hua was perfect, but it didn't mean that she could conquer a city. No matter how many ice walls she had shattered, Yunshi could always build more and more walls around her before she moved. Finally, he successfully trapped Hua in the huge ice castle. If one looked down from the sky, one could see over 1,000,000 mist souls moving between the mist door and the ice castle, working together to build the ice castle larger and larger. At first, the ice castle was just a prototype formed by dozens of ice walls. Under his million brides' efforts, it was finally shaped into a giant white ice lotus. Compared to the ice lotus, Hua's figure was negligible right now. A cold light flashed through Yunshi's eyes. He waved his hand in the air. The next moment, the gaps amongst the ice lotus petals were filled with endless silver particles. It turned into a giant ice mountain and sealed Hua inside it. P.S. Volume 1, from C1 to C62, and Volume 2, from C63 to C144, of Starchild Escapes Arranged Marriage. Chapter 260. Seal Hua. Okay, she is temporarily sealed. Let's leave. She wiped away the sweat on his forehead. He held Yun-Kei's hand and motioned her to leave the battlefield with him. Don't you want to keep fighting? With your ice castle, we still stand a chance, Yun-Kei said and looked at Yunshi meaningfully. It's not like what you would say. You should know we can't defeat her now. Yunshi was surprised at Yun-Quebec. They had sealed Hua, but hadn't defeated her. It was still too difficult to defeat her at this moment. Yunshi knew his childhood sweetheart better than anyone. Ka. An ear-piercing cracking noise came from the ice mountain, giving Yunshi a shiver. As expected, even such a strong seal could only seal Hua temporarily. Reinforce. Reinforce. Yunshi ordered 1/10 of the mist souls to stay on the battlefield and keep reinforcing the ice mountain. After that, he immediately held Yun-Kei's hand and left the battlefield. It was really a lot of pressure to fight against Hua. I'd better go deep into the Sky Sword's camp before she breaks the ice mountain. You're gradually becoming mature. Yun-Kei discharged her multiple competences enhancing, then looked at Yun-Shi in a meaningful way. However, you are still too tender-hearted towards females. We had a chance to kill her just now. No, we had no opportunity. Yun-Shi shook his head and answered decidedly. You should have found no matter how strong the attack she was facing, she could always become stronger. Even if you shot the 3 arrows of blood hummingbird at her, you wouldn't defeat her, because she wouldn't be defeated by such an attack. Yun-Kei frowned. She carefully remembered the battle and had to admit that Yun-Hai was right. There really are geniuses who can make impossibility into a possibility in this world. Hua and Yun-Hai are the same types of geniuses. How powerful are his imagination and instinct? Why could he conjure up such an unconventional tactic? At least, Yun-Kei knew that she couldn't do it, because she couldn't imagine how to incorporate a non-existent phenomenon into her tactical formation. Hua's sky-flying sword and Yun-Shi's crafting mode had all fed her sight. She realized that super geniuses really existed in this world. Vaguely, She also understood why the water god showed concern and solicitude for Yunhai instead of her. Because the water god wishes the world to be changed, she could do the best under the known conditions, catching all the subtle possibilities. She could make everything better. However, she didn't have the inspiration to change this world. She was good at collecting information, developing tactics, and concentrating advantages to defeat her enemy. But she had no control over accidents and variables because she had never expected a miracle. In her view, when a person had to pray for a miracle, it meant that the person had had no choice at that time. Essentially, a miracle was an aggregation of countless little probabilities, which also meant that it was unreliable. Before Yun Ke met Huahua and Yun Shi, she never put miracle into her tactical system. Now, she understood that there were really humans who could create miracles with their own power and imagination. The things that were impossible to her was very likely to happen to them. Huahua's offensive power was overwhelming. She could hover in the sky before entering the hero rank. Yunhai was supported by a whole world. He could use his million brides power to create an ice castle from nothing. Miracle was just an untouchable fantasy to ordinary people, but to them, it was a part of their lives. How enviable they are. Yun Ke had to admit that Yunhai was a super genius, except for his only shortcoming, lust for women. He was a hero-ranked baker, the water god's beloved apostle, the White Emperor, and the husband of 1,000,000 girls. If possible, I should accept him. No. Yun Ke shook her head. Her heart still refused to accept him. She couldn't bear his excessive lechery. Even though she had stained her hands with blood, she still couldn't accept a shameless, salacious man from the bottom of her heart. He had only left a very few good impressions in Yun Ke's heart after she saw his crafting mode. Of course, the good impression was still negligible. She was just interested in his great battle talent. Apart from this, she had no favorable impression towards him at all, because she hated men who were disrespectful to women. Boom, boom, boom. Bloody lights turned into earth-shaking, impacting waves. Huahua was bombarding the ice walls like crazy. Every time she brandished her sword, dozens of ice walls would be broken. However, there were over 100,000 mist souls that were repairing the ice mountain. Their work had completely offset the damage Huahua's attacks had made. Huahua was completely sealed in the center of the ice mountain and couldn't find any chance to escape from it. Huahua felt as if she was punching a ball of cotton. Her strength was totally useless in front of the ice mountain. The silver-masked man seemed very familiar with her combat characteristics. He avoided fighting her face to face. Instead, he sealed her in the ice mountain. Who is that man? Why does he know me so well? Huahua brandished her blood-colored sword in anger. She had to admit that she was at a disadvantage this time. P.S. Volume 1, from C1 to C62, and Volume 2, from C63 to C144, of Starchild Escapes Arranged Marriage. Chapter 261. The world's enemy on the surface of a giant mirror that was reflecting the scene of the battlefield. A girl army was moving forward, crushing all the slime armies who dared to block their way. In the distance, there was a silver-white lotus that was still becoming larger. A lot of mist souls were working on reinforcing Huahua's ice cage. Have they broken through the first area of the island? The dark shadow spider queen's slender toes lightly touched the scene on the mirror surface. She could clearly see that a part of the slime network at the periphery had turned gray, which meant that the slimes at that place had all been eliminated. Because a lot of slimes had been killed, Shea Longness, the Sky Sword's descending speed was being greatly reduced. For the first time, the countdown in the slime network, which meant the process of the Sky Sword's coming, stagnated. I can't see this happening. It's time to let you make some contributions. Are the people who have obtained the great Sky Sword's power ready to strike? Show your powers to the enemies. The Spider Queen crossed her legs and commanded the young Sword Palace disciples. Understood. We will defeat the so-called White Emperor. We will teach that guy an impressive lesson. The Sword Palace disciples were all fired up. They all had a weird green eye on their foreheads, which was the extra life force the Sky Sword had conferred them all. The brand new power made them look good and feel better, and they did have a good reason to be confident. The green eyes conferred them a power that was close to the hero rank. Although the power couldn't really make them enter the hero rank, but they had so many partners. When they fought together, they had the confidence to beat down the White Emperor like relentlessly beating a dog in the water. They were already not their past themselves. They had regenerated. Of course, they didn't get to experience how strong Hua's power was. Naturally, they didn't understand how frightening Yuan Shi and Yun Kei's power were even though they saw Hua being sealed by Yuan Shi. Now, they started to imagine how to maltreat the White Emperor who dared to snatch their dream lovers. After the other Sword Palace disciples swarmed out of the cave, the Spider Queen looked at the two people who didn't follow her order and still stayed in the cave. The strongest two people. They were the twin witches, who had the best once-in-a-millennium talent. Don't you go? The Spider Queen smiled, but her tone was cold. It's not our battlefield, Red Lotus said to the Spider Queen sneeringly. The final battle is coming. White Lotus was using her great circulation to predict the future. Hee. It looks like you are the only two smart people. The Spider Queen stretched herself. As the most remorseless predator in the void, her expression was deliberate at this moment. A mixed army appeared in front of Yuan Shi's Mist Soul army. They are. After coming to this world, Yuan Shi had seen the Starwing Knights girls, Hua and Yun Quebec. Now, he saw other people he knew. Of course, he only knew very little about them. Apart from Child Yuan He only knew that the other people were all the talented swordsmen from other areas of White Lotus Sword Domain. However, their auras were very strange. All the Sword Palace disciples had an ugly eye on their foreheads, and there was something green squirming under their skin. If Yuan Shi closed his eyes, he would think that they were a group of slimes. White Emperor, you are immoral. My Rim and Ram. My little Sora and little Aoi. Damn it, White Emperor. I haven't let them know my love. I haven't proposed to them. How dare you to carry off my dream lover? The young boys who had obtained the Sky Sword's power cried and accused Yuan Shi of his crimes. There were a lot of kind-hearted, gentle girls in the Water God's world. These hot-blooded boys had all met their dream lovers after leaving this island. However, this apostle who was called White Emperor just married 1,000,000 brides. Unremarkably, their dream lovers had all become this man's brides, which was really a cruel fact to face for these young boys' tender hearts. That day, Yuan Shi changed this world's fate, but also, he unintentionally made these Sword Palace disciples suffer the most painful blow of their lives. They will never forgive the White Emperor. It's your responsibility. You should solve it yourself. Yun Kei took a glance at Yuan Shi. Since he dared to marry 1,000,000 brides, then he should deal with the problems himself. Well, in fact, it's a misunderstanding. Yuan Shi touched his nose, finding himself both funny and annoying. No one could know that the girls in the Water God's world were all so beautiful. It seemed that these Sword Palace disciples, who would become his classmates in the future, had all met their dream lovers. It was because this trial world was too real. The people who didn't know the truth would never think that this was just a dream. They really fell in love with the girls in this world. They read the girls' names loudly and firmly remembered them in their hearts. If Yun Kei didn't make that expansion plan of 1,000,000 brides, these young boys, since they had great talents, would undoubtedly be able to catch these girls' hearts and have an unforgettable love story with their dream lovers. Unfortunately, Yuan Shi had a hand in their failure and had become doomed. In a sense, Yuan Shi snatched all of their dream lovers. No wonder that they stared at him in a towering rage. What an unexpected accident. At the beginning, Yuan Shi only planned to be married to the Starwing Knights girls. What step was wrong that made himself become so many young boys' enemy? Well, let's stand here in silent tribute a second for these hot-hearted young boys first. P.S. Volume 1 from C1 to C62, and Volume 2 from C63 to C144 of Starchild Escapes Arranged Marriage. Chapter 262. Burn with rage. Even if it was their misunderstanding, Yunshi still made his choice. Sorry, I'm busy. I don't have time to chat with you. Let's finish the battle quickly, so that I can go to the next location earlier. After hearing Yunshi's words, the Sword Palace disciples were immediately provoked. You bastard! How dare you look down on us? We experienced hell-like torment and died countless times, so that we can obtain such a strong power. Yes, today we are no longer as we have been. In the name of the great evil god Tlahuiz Kalpantakutli, we will punish you. Burn, 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 burn. Kill, 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 kill. They shouted with their wrath toward the sky. Especially Child Yunhe, he stared Yunshi as if he was planning to kill Yunshi with his eyes. There was some strong emotion burning in his heart. Why? Why can this guy obtain the water god's blessing and marry 1,000,000 girls? If I was the chosen one, I could do much better than him. I can do 10,000 times better than the so-called White Emperor. Unfortunately, there was no holy animal alpacas in this world. Otherwise, as the evil god Tlahuiz Kalpantakutli's chosen one, he could beat down the White Emperor without the power from Shea Longness, the Sky Sword. If so, the beautiful mermaid queen would undoubtedly become my bride. When Child Yunhe first heard the mermaid queen's song, his heart had been tightly captured by the non-human queen of the sea. Yunhe, don't be rash. Child Sanquan shook the feather fan in his hand. As the evil god Tlahuiz Kalpantakutli's first apostle, he could instinctively sense that this world was very strange. The scene in this world was too beautiful, like a garden of the rich, which was too weird as a natural world. Plus the endless mist and Shea Longness, the sky sword who suddenly appeared. Child Sanquan had an ominous presentiment. Who cares? Since we have obtained the new power, let's just use it. Compared to Child Sanquan, Child Xinyan's idea was simple. I also found someone who deserved my love in this world, but she was snatched by the White Emperor. How can any man endure it? Yes, although Child Xinyan was a battle mania, he also fell in love with someone in this world. The strongest high priestess in this world, the Lamia Queen. No word could be used to describe his feeling when he first saw the Lamia Queen. As if his bloodline had a natural response, he fell in love with the Lamia Queen at first sight. When he gazed at the Lamia Queen's slender screw-like tail, his heart experienced an unprecedented impact. For the first time, he realized that he wouldn't like battle better than a woman. It was just because his taste was special, so that ordinary females couldn't make his heart move. He had a very special sex obsession, which was undoubtedly different to ordinary human. But compared to Yunshi, who had married so many girls of different races, his special interest was trivial. The Sword Palace disciples who were surrounding around the three childs had all lost their dream lovers due to Yunshi. Why wouldn't they feel angry and sad? I will kill the White Emperor. If he dies, the Lamia Queen would realize how weak he is and fall in love with me. The green eye twitched on Child Xinyan's forehead, and the strange things squirmed inside his skin as if they would break out at any time. Maybe it was because of Child Xinyan's excellent physique. He absorbed the most energy from the weird green eye. Amongst the Sword Palace disciples, he was the only person who had perfectly synchronized with his green eye. When other people's hero-ranked power still had obvious weakness, he had considerably approached the real hero rank. You are still too naive. Looking at Child Xinyan, Child Yunhe, and the other Sword Palace disciples who stared at Yunshi with anger and jealousy, Child Sanquan sighed. Sanquan, don't you like the Celian Queen? Don't you want to punch the White Emperor's face? Child Yunhe asked back. As if it was their fate, the three childs had all fallen in love with one of the three water gods' high priestesses. Child Sanquan also had a passion for the Celian Queen's intellectual beauty and saintly beauty. I like her, but it's impossible to have the thing you can't have. Well, so I said that you were too naive. Child Sanquan shook his head. Probably no one can understand me, because my life path has determined that I will be lonely forever. As the evil god Tlahuiz Kalpantakutli's apostle, I have offered my whole life as a sacrifice to the god. I will enjoy the beautiful scenery I can see, but I will never try to possess them. My goal is to help the evil god take back its power. Before that, I won't be controlled by my personal emotion. Humph. I won't shrink back like you. Child Yun, he was also the evil god Tlahua's Kalpantacutli's subordinate. His goal was specific from the beginning. Power. I want power. Only after having the strongest power, I can dominate and possess everything. Kill the White Emperor and let the Lamia Queen become my bride. This was what Child Yun he was yelling in his heart now. Yes, kill him. Child Xin Yin rubbed his fists and wiped his palms. After obtaining the hero-ranked power, he was in an overconfident mood. It seems that they all want to tear you into pieces. Yun Ke could clearly see the angry expressions on the Sword Palace disciples' faces. She shrugged her shoulders and stepped back, letting Yun Shi handle this situation alone. I will treat you to dinner after returning to the real world. So, don't blame me. Anyway, you guys won't really die. Yun Shi murmured, then waved his hand. The Mist Soul army started to rush to the Sword Palace disciples. Chapter 263. Absolute Superiority in the Face of the Mist Soul Army's Strong Pressure. The Sword Palace disciples released the powers they obtained from Shea Longness, the Sky Sword. One green thread after another came out from their skins and combined with their blood, transforming their life form rapidly. Based on their original physiques, they transformed into 4 types of slimes: strength, defense, speed, and special slime. The strength-type slimes were all 3 meters tall and had green muscles covering their whole bodies, looked as if they were green giants. The defense-type slimes had green scales on their bodies, which made them look like some weird puppets. The special-type slimes had a pair of translucent wings on their back. They floated in the air, and the translucent wings flapped at a hypersonic speed with buzzing sounds. Only 3 Sword Palace disciples transformed into the special-type slimes, and not surprisingly, they were the 3 childs. They had great talent and strong power from the beginning, so their new forms were also much stronger than others. Child Xin Yin transformed into a big Hercules beetle. There was a horn on his forehead which looked like a sharp sword, and his face also became angular with a cold aura. Child San Quan transformed into a scyther. He had 3 pairs of lavender wings and a pair of blade-like arms. Child Yun he transformed into a longhorn beetle and looked as if he was wearing full plate armor, which made him look different than all the other Sword Palace disciples. A pair of antennas were erected on his longicorn head, straightly pointing at Yun Shi's location. These strange forms were the powers the Sky Sword had conferred on them. They were all the creatures the Sky Sword had eaten. The strange green eyes on their foreheads recorded the genes of these strong creatures and forcibly merged the genes with these Sword Palace disciples' bodies. The method was simple and rough, but it was indeed very effective to let them obtain strong powers instantly. The only weakness was that the duration of their transformation depended on their physiques. If the hosts were too weak, they may be unable to transform back to their human shapes or would retain some part of the non-human characteristics on their bodies. Of course, the common Sword Palace disciples didn't know this. Child San Quan and Child Yun he knew it, but they zipped their mouths closed because they didn't worry about it. As the evil god Tlahua's Kalpantacutli's subordinates, they wouldn't face the disastrous result. As for Child Xin Yin, he was just an idiot and knew nothing about it. But his integration degree with the green eye was the highest, so his body wouldn't be contaminated either. Kill him. I would die with everlasting regret if I couldn't kill him today. I will let the White Emperor pay with his life. After transforming into slimes, the Sword Palace disciples howled and rushed to the Mist Soul army with the real slimes. Build multiple prism system. After the battle with Huahua, Yun Shi had more inspirations about how to use his Mist Soul army. Compared to create countless ice blades, which was too inefficient, to build wonders on the battlefield would be more effective to change the balance of a war. It was a better method to use his Mist Soul army's power. One transparent prism after another appeared behind Yun Shi. They automatically floated in the air and combined with each other. They were refracting the lights of the sun. The mist door behind Yunshi absorbed all the mist on the battlefield. For the first time, bright sunlights directly shined on the surface of the island of mist. Whoa, it's hot. I'm hot. I'm burning. You scum. Come out and face me. Stop using this dirty method. No, I'm going to be burned to death. Yunshi absorbed the mist with the Mist Soul Army's power and created the prisms using the crafting mode. The prisms refracted the light of the sun and focused the lights on a point on the ground. Although the Sword Palace disciples had obtained hero-ranked powers, their bodies were still flesh and blood. The strong sunlight on one point was fatal to them. The scene looked like a children's game, burning ants with a magnifying glass. The magnifying glass was the countless prisms Yunshi created, and the ants were these unlucky Sword Palace disciples. What a terrifying power! How could he create such a strong wonder so easily? We're screwed. When focusing on one point, the sunlight could reach thousands of degrees. Yunshi didn't aim the targets carefully. He just slightly adjusted the prism's angles. Then a group of Sword Palace disciples had been burned into ashes. In the face of the scorching sunlight, the three childs had all fallen into despair. Although they still thought that they could defeat Yunshi, but the sunlight of thousands of degrees taught them an impressive lesson. Although their bodies were far stronger than other Sword Palace disciples, they could only hold on a few seconds, then were burned to black coke, just like everyone else. After obtaining the Million Brides power, Yunshi could borrow the whole world's power, turning impossibility into possibility. This was the real power of his crafting mode. The mist, ice, snow, ground, sea, sun. Everything in this world could become his power. He could create all kinds of wonders with his Million Brides power, such as the ice castle he used to seal Huahua and the prism matrix he used to burn the Sword Palace disciples. There are only things that he cannot imagine, yet nothing he cannot achieve. What a pity to be your enemy, said Yun Quebec. Yun Ke walked on the battlefield littered with ashes. She kicked several black cokes over with an expression of sympathy on her face. P.S. Volume 1, from C1 to C62, and Volume 2, from C63 to C144, of Starchild Escapes Arranged Marriage. Chapter 264. See the mist tide again. After Yunshi burned all the Sword Palace disciples, the Mist Soul Army pushed forward again. After finding out the right method to use his Mist Soul Army's power, Yunshi's full attack was like the liberating breeze, conquering the second island chain within half a day. Over 10 million slimes and dozens of slime nests became the Mist Soul Army's combat gains. The green slime bracelet were fed to appetite and almost became an armband, but its hand feel was still soft and rubbery. It's strange. Something is wrong. Although everything was going smoothly, Yun Ke still instinctively sensed something. Why didn't we see any golden slime kings? They are the cores of the slime network. How wouldn't we see any of them here? Yunshi also wondered about it. If Yun Ke's intelligence was right, golden slime kings were the most important sign of the Shea Longness, the Sky Sword's coming. At any rate, they weren't possible to miss these special slimes. However, they indeed didn't see any of them, as if these golden slime kings didn't exist from the beginning. Moreover, the Spider Woman didn't appear either. She should play a very important role in the Sky Sword's camp. Combined with the information she had obtained, Yun Ke sensed an ominous atmosphere. It looked like this time, Shea Longness, the Sky Sword's coming was different to any record in the past. Are you sure this is the right place? Yunshi remembered their purpose of coming to the Island of Mist. Find the Mist Demon to solve the biggest mystery in the Water God's world. As for encountered with the slime armies and figured out that Shea Longness, the Sky Sword would descend to this world from here. It was just a coincidence. It must be this place, otherwise it can't explain why there are so many special slimes. It's the most obvious omen of the Sky Sword's coming. Yunhai, perhaps we don't have too much time. Yun Ke looked seriously at Yunshi. Although she had admitted that Yunhai was a man who could create miracles, however, Shea Longness was a Sky Sword. She wasn't an enemy who could be defeated by one or two miracles. Actually, Yun-Kei didn't think that they could defeat Shea Longness. The only way to stop her was to eliminate all Golden Slime Kings before she came to this world. However, almost all Shea Longness enemies knew this tactic, but none of them had ever succeeded. The Golden Slime Kings themselves were already powerful hero-ranked creatures. Their bodies were immune to almost all magical attacks and physical attacks. To defeat a Golden Slime King was even more difficult than to defeat 10 hero-ranked humans at the same time. Yun-Kei had estimated her strongest attack damage, and the conclusion wasn't very optimistic. If she was alone, she could only kill one Golden Slime King, then she would have been exhausted. However, Yun-Hai was different. Unlike her, Yun-Hai had almost infinite energy from his million brides. Plus, he had understood the crafting mode, and the whole world was supporting him. His offensive power was nearly infinity. He was the only person who could eliminate all Golden Slime Kings. He was the only hope of saving this world. The smell, no. It's not the slime smell. It is, through the mental bond with his Mist Soul army, Yun-Shi sensed a very strange aura in the air. What's that? Through her eagle's eye, Yun-Kei also saw the approaching phenomenon from a distance. In the deep cave, the Spider Queen observed the slime network, which was showing that a lot of slime nodes were disappearing. TSK, as expected, the game is just beginning. I should move now. The Spider Queen showed a strange smile on her face. She stood up and quickly sneaked into the darkness. If one looked down from the sky, one would see an extraordinarily large mist tide gushing out from a core area on the island of Mist. The mist tide rolled up 1,000 heaps of mist waves, rising to the sky. It wasn't exaggerated to say that it had blotted out the sky and covered up the earth. Why does it come at this time? Yun-Kei ground her teeth. They were just a step away from success. Once they went deep into the core area and killed the Golden Slime Kings, they would be able to stop the third stage of Shea Longness, the Sky Sword's coming. Why does the mist tide appear at this time with such an unprecedentedly large scale? According to the records she had read, such a large mist tide would bring unimaginable disaster to the whole world. Because the island of Mist was the source of the mist tide, no one, including the 3 high priestesses, was allowed to enter this forbidden zone. Calm down, Yun-Quebec. That's not like you. The mist tide is a natural phenomenon that is far beyond our control. Yun-Shi found that the ice castle, including the 100,000 mist souls around it, had all disappeared in the mist tide, which meant that some unknown power in the mist tide was nibbling his power. Just after a few seconds, he had lost the connection with the mist souls in the mist tide. Shuffle. A small silver creature flew past Yun-Shi and Yun-Kei with cold mist spreading to the air from its wings. The mist on its wings weren't some natural phenomenon due to the fall of temperature, but was something much more dangerous. The butterfly of death. Yun-Kei opened her eyes wide. It was the most dangerous creature in the mist tide, because no one could survive after seeing it, including the people who had the water god's blessing. Only a few people who had the water god's bloodline could hold out a little longer. After recording the butterfly of death in their notes, they also died in the mist tide. The beautiful butterfly was the veritable avatar of death in the water god's world. P.S. Volume 1, from C1 to C62, and Volume 2, from C63 to C144, of Starchild Escape's Arranged Marriage. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.